Chapter 37:13. Ben Jun can marry into the Xiao Yao sect today. Yen Yen, will you marry Ben Jun today? How about we consummate our marriage tonight? Ben Jun hasn't tried the bed of the Xiao Yao sect yet. Mu Yen. Flirting with him instead of getting flirted with, so annoying. On the side, Xing Lang's mouth twitches fiercely, wishing he could cover his eyes. No, this isn't his aloof, arrogant, unparalleled Jun Shang, absolutely not. He just had an auditory hallucination. That's right, it must be an auditory hallucination. After Yin Yuanyi disappears, the seal that Yin Wuji left on Luo Yunxiao is lifted. Without the obstruction of the seal, Mu Yan's Shen musician skill, art of yellow qi, immediately plays its role. Soon, her battered body recovers. Her badly mutilated face also becomes incomparably handsome. Mu Yan looks at the handsome face of her little martial uncle, and she can't help but sigh. It would be a pity if such a peerless man was disfigured. Luo Yunxiao's ears are a little hot from her unblinking gaze. After enduring for a while, she finally couldn't help but say coldly, "What are you looking at me for?" Hee hee. Mu Yan shows a sly smile. "Little martial uncle, be honest, do you have a fiancé?" Luo Yunxiao stares blankly, subconsciously looking up to meet her eyes. Mu Yan has an expression that says, "Don't pretend anymore, I know everything, Di Mingju told me, the demon princess, and you are engaged, is it true?" Luo Yunxiao subconsciously clenches her left hand. There have been several heartfelt imprints there. It was his betrothal, his fetters, his hopeless love and hope. Mu Yan's expression becomes serious, and she cautiously says, "Little martial uncle, isn't this engagement voluntary? You don't like the demon princess? Could it be that little martial uncle was forced by the demon lord? How can this be tolerated? How can the people of the Xiao Yao sect be bullied by others? Even forced to marry? What's more, the one being bullied is little martial uncle. What's wrong with the demon princess? If the demon princess dares to threaten their little martial uncle, then she must be killed. At worst, they could just go to the demon race's headquarters and kidnap the bride." Mu Yan is already secretly imagining how little martial uncle is being bullied by the unscrupulous demon lord and forced into prostitution. This scene. However, Luo Yunxiao suddenly said in a hoarse voice, "I volunteered." Mayin's train of thought pauses, and when she raises her head to meet Luo Yunxiao's face, she can't help but stare blankly. She had never seen youngest martial uncle with such an expression. It was as if he was swearing an oath, but also as if he was venting the deepest secrets and desires in his heart. Word by word, he repeated what he had just said, "This engagement is of my own free will. I have no regrets in this life." Even if he knew it was just an illusion. Even if he spurned his own greed and cowardice. No matter how deep one's hope was, the more despair one would feel when the pain came in the future. However, he still gladly endured it and had no regrets in this life. Mayan stares blankly for a good while, then a brilliant smile blooms on her face. It seemed like junior martial uncle really liked the demon princess. There was no blind marriage, no forced marriage. No forced prostitution. That's really great. Mayan happily says, "Little martial uncle, it's really great that you can be together with the person you like." She hopes that everyone in the Xiao Yao sect can get what they want, and grow old together with their loved ones. Di Mingju's low and cold voice comes from behind. Mayan promptly puts away the Tian Mo Qin and returns to Di Mingju's side. Chapter 37:14. Mu Yan quickly puts away the Tian Mo Qin and returns to Di Mingju's side. She doesn't see that behind her, Luo Yunxiao is staring at the girl's departing back, and then he lowers his eyes. The corners of his mouth hooks up into a gentle smile. He says to himself in his heart, "So what if I can't be with the person I like?" So what if I can't get what I want? As long as he can see her happiness from afar, and see her smile brightly, it's enough. Although Ning Fuxing is stubbornly refusing to say the location of Ning Yanxin. But Mu Yan can roughly guess. That is the Ning family's forbidden area, Luiyue Pond. Luiyue. Even if they know the location, they can't do anything about it. Because they can't get in. Not to mention Mu Yan, even Luo Yunxiao has never seen the great array that wraps around Luiyue Pond. It should be the virtual jade reincarnation array that Ning Kunchen mentioned. Mu Yan uses the Shin musician skill, Star Curtain, to check the entire array, but she can't find any flaws or entrances. With Di Mingju's cultivation, it's naturally easy to break this array by force. But the problem is that once the array is forcibly destroyed, Ning Yanxin, who is inside, is likely to perish along with it. Mu Yan grabs Ning Fuxing's collar and coldly says, "Speak, how can we break this virtual jade reincarnation array?" Ning Fuxing's eyes are cold and resentful as he stares at her, a sinister smile on his face. "There's no way. Didn't the old ancestors say that the life gate of the virtual jade reincarnation array is connected to his heart? Once the old ancestor dies, the life gate of the virtual jade reincarnation array will also close." "Ha ha ha, your mother can only be trapped in the virtual jade reincarnation array for the rest of her life, unable to live or die. All of this is because of you, an unfilial daughter." Mu Yan's face turns white with anger. The hand that grabs his collar turns around and clasps his neck, suddenly squeezing tightly. "Ning Fuxing, isn't my mother your own daughter? Even a vicious tiger eats its cubs. How can you be so cruel and merciless to your own daughter? Are you still human? No, your Ning family is worse than beasts." Ning Fuxing's face instantly turned red. There was a bit of fear in his eyes, but there was even more anger and resentment. "As members of the Ning family, isn't it natural for you to sacrifice for the glory and survival of the Ning family? I loved Yan Xan so much and gave her whatever she wanted, but what about her? Betraying the Ning family for a man. Why do you all have to be so selfish? You only think about your own love, hate, life and death, and not think about the rise and fall of the Ning family. Without the Ning family, where would you come from?" Mu Yan takes a deep breath, her eyes surging with killing intent. Her fingers were about to exert force when Ning Zhongbai suddenly broke through and grabbed her arm, his voice trembling. "Mayan, he's your grandfather, he's my father. Please don't kill him, I beg you. Say something." Ning Yu's expression was so cold that it could drip water. "Father, you treat me as your father, but I don't treat you as my son. Have you forgotten how he attacked you just now? Why do you still care about this kind of person's life and death? But Mayan, he's your blood relative after all. If you want to kill him, don't dirty your hands, lest you get infected with evil karma." Ning Yu rebuked Ning Zhongbai until he couldn't say a word. But he had lived in the Ning family for so many years. Chapter 37:15. When Ning Fuxing didn't involve the family's interests or Ning Kunchen, he was a kind and strict father. He didn't care about the life and death of other people in the Ning family. But how could he just watch Ning Fuxing die? Father, I beg you, open the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Array, okay?" Ning Zhongbai knelt in front of Ning Fuxing, crying with tears streaming down his face. "Hasn't my little sister suffered enough in these 20 years? Don't you feel the slightest pity and heartache for her? She's your most beloved daughter." Ning Fuxing's eyes flashed, and his face showed some emotion. Ning Zhongbai shed tears and looked at Mu Yan imploringly. Mu Yan pursed her lips and finally let go of Ning Fuxing. Ning Zhongbai knelt in front of Ning Fuxing and choked with sobs. "Father, do you remember? My sister liked to make clothes and shoes for you the most. The inner clothes you wear now were all made by her 20 years ago. She would make dozens of sets every month. Even if you said it was too much and she didn't need to continue, she still wouldn't listen. Because she knew at that time that she would become the Ning family's next sacrifice. At this point, Ning Zhongbai couldn't hold back the surging tears in his eyes. He sobbed and choked. My sister already knew, she actually knew everything. I still remember that my sister was very lively and innocent when she was young, but after the age of 10, she suddenly became taciturn and alienated from others. That's because she heard the conversation between you and old ancestor, and knew that one day she would become the Ning family's sacrifice. She alienated from everyone and was alone because she was afraid that father and brother would be sad for her when she became a sacrifice. She didn't dare to love, and she didn't dare to be loved, because she couldn't face the separation of life and death that would come one day. My sister was ready to sacrifice herself for the Ning family. Even when she got together with Jun Shiyuan, she never thought of staying with him forever. It was the Ning family that was too cruel and merciless. They wanted to kill Jun Shiyuan and take away his treasures, so my sister couldn't bear it and resisted. Ning Fuxing listened in a daze, his expression absent-minded. Hearing this, he suddenly said sternly, Jun Shiyuan is a devil cultivator, a great devil that everyone has the right to kill. What's wrong with us plotting to kill him? How could Yan Xian resist me, her father, for a devil? Mayan grinds her molars together, her hands itching to kill again. Did the Ning family really treat shamelessness as a tradition? Di Mingju embraces her in his arms, faintly saying, if you can't do it, Ben Jun will have someone deal with it. Mu Yan takes a deep breath and shakes her head. Forget it, she only had one uncle, there was no need to make him sad. In any case, Ning Fuxing's cultivation was crippled and he would die sooner or later. Ning Zhongbai didn't argue with Ning Fuxing, but continued to speak mournfully, but in the end, Yan still chose to stay in the Ning family to become a sacrifice, didn't she? Father, now that the Ning family has become like this, the existence of the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation has become meaningless. Are you really unwilling to release my sister and let her see the light of day again? Ning Fuxing looks foolishly at the dense fog in front of him, and then glances at Mayan. The expression on his face kept changing. Father, I'm begging you. Even if my sister was in the wrong, wasn't it enough for her to suffer so many years of torture? Chapter 37:16. Listening to Ning Zhongbai's crying. Ning Fuxing finally closed his eyes and said hoarsely, there is indeed a way to open the life gate of the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation. Ning Zhongbai's eyes lit up, what is it? Ning Fuxing stared at the stone tablet engraved with the words Liu Miaopu and said slowly, the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation was created by my grandfather, Ning Xianting. In his body, there is the tear of the ghost from the witch Nikhang. By using himself as a sacrifice to experience the reincarnation tribulation in the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation, he can provide endless vitality and blessings to the bloodline of the Ning family. But the tribulation of reincarnation is extremely painful. No matter how strong-willed one is, there is no way to endure it for too long. Therefore, the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation will pass the power of the tear of the ghost to the next bloodline of the Ning family through the blood pattern bell. The blood pattern bell is born from the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation. It has its own consciousness and will choose the corresponding bloodline of the Ning family. Who will be the next sacrifice is not decided by us, but by the blood pattern bell or the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation. As he said, he suddenly turned his head and looked at Mu Yan with malicious eyes. The life gate of the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation disappears, and others can't go in. But the next sacrifice will be accepted by the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation. However, only the sacrifice can go in. Do you dare? Ning Zhongbai trembled all over, and his face was as pale as gold paper. He kept murmuring, how could it be? Is the next sacrifice really Mu Yan? Why are you so cruel to my little sister? Ning Fuxing showed a sarcastic smile to Mu Yan. I have told you the way to save your mother. Now, let's see if you have the guts to do it. Once you are captured by the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation, you will be in a state where you can neither live nor die. You can't escape until your soul is scattered. Mu Yan looked at him coldly. It turns out that you also know what kind of pain your daughter is suffering in there. Do you want to have a taste of the same pain as her? After that, she didn't look at Ning Fuxing again, but turned around and walked towards the stone tablet of the Liumiao pool. Yen. Di Mingju grabs hold of her, unable to hide the worry in his eyes. Mayan smiles at him. Di Mingju, believe me, nothing will happen to me. Ning Fuxing sneered. Back then, Jun Shiyuan, the devil, also walked into the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation confidently. What was the result? Now, there might not even be any bones left. At the side, Star Wolf could not bear it any longer. He raised his leg and fiercely kicked him in the face, causing him to fall to the ground. Meeting Ning Fuxing's furious gaze, Xing Lang sneered coldly. You are Miss Jun's grandfather. I can't kill you, but I have at least 100 ways to make you beg for death. Do you want to give it a try? Ning Fuxing did not dare to speak again. However, his eyes shone with malevolence and hatred. He's waiting to hear Jun Mayan's terrified scream, waiting to see Di Mingju's pained and regretful expression. As long as it was a sacrifice that entered the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation, no one could come out alive. At this time, Mu Yan had already arrived in front of the flowing noxious pond, stone tablet. She didn't need Ning Fuxing's explanation to know that this was the location that connected to the heart of the formation. Mu Yan lifted the blood vein bell on her waist and placed it on the stone tablet. Chapter 37:17. In the next moment, he felt the thick fog in front of him surge violently, as though it was being curled up by a gale. Gradually, a vortex formed in the center of the white mist. A huge suction force came over, as if an invisible hand had stretched out, wanting to pull Mayan directly into the thick fog. Star Wolf cursed in a low voice. What energy fluctuation is this? How could there be such an evil formation on the floating island? He had been waiting for this from the start. But now, he found that he couldn't even get close to the vortex in the white fog. The smile on Ning Fuxing's face became more and more excited. However, before he could be proud of himself for long, the smile on his face froze. This was because he saw that the handsome young man had unknowingly thrown out a disc array. White light flickered and enveloped the entire fog. The vortex that had grabbed Mu Yan and was about to swallow her was actually imprisoned by the energy lines that extended from the array disc. A passage appeared in the white mist. Then, he was unable to close it, nor was he able to grab Mayan inside. Mu Yan took back the blood vein bell, clapped her hands, and gave Luo Yunxiao a thumbs up. Junior Master's attainments in arrays are getting stronger and stronger. Luo Yunxiao's brows are indifferent, she doesn't respond to Mayan. He only looked at Di Mingju and said, You accompany her inside, I will stand guard outside. Ning Fuxing's eyes were full of horror as he looked at Mu Yan and the others in disbelief. Impossible. Why weren't you swallowed by the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation? Mu Yan looks at him mockingly. There's no gap, there's no way to break a great array without any flaws. But if the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation wants to catch me as a sacrifice, there will naturally be a flaw. Once there was a flaw, be it her or little Uncle Master, it would only be a matter of minutes for them to break the formation. It was just that she chose to be the sacrifice, and youngest martial uncle just cooperated with her to break the formation. Ning Fu was so angry that his whole body was trembling, but he was suddenly kicked into the misty passageway. Don't you want to see with your own eyes how your own daughter sacrifices herself for the Ning family? My dear grandfather, on the first day she entered the Ning family, Mayan had a dream. She dreamed of a blue pool. Blue buds in the pond. There was still that pair of bloody eyes in the flower bud. However, she never expected that. At this moment, in the jade virtual reincarnation formation, everything that happened in her dream reappeared. The ice-cold hand suddenly grabs Di Mingju's hand, and her body snuggles up tightly in his embrace, as if she wants to draw strength from him. Di Mingju hugs her tightly, his voice carrying an unconcealable worry. Yen Yen, what's wrong? Mayan's gaze is unblinkingly fixed on the blue flower buds floating in the pond in front of her. Her clothes were soaked in cold sweat. She now knew what the bloody eyes she saw in her dream were. It was her mother. But why did her mother's face have no eyelids, no nose, and no bones? Only that pair of terrifying eyes. Di Mingju touches her ice-cold face with a distressed expression. He suddenly grabs her waist, and the two of them soar into the air, floating in front of the blue bud. Divine power slowly poured into the blue flower bud. The flower bud swayed, as if it was about to shatter. Di Mingju is so scared that he promptly withdraws his divine power, and pretends that he didn't do anything. Perhaps it's his mother-in-law inside. If he kills her, his road to marrying Mayan will be far away in the indefinite future. Chapter 37:18. At this time, Mayan's mind is in a mess. She doesn't even notice Jun Shangdaren's little movements. She takes a deep breath, and after a long time of mental preparation, she slowly presses her hand on the blue flower bud. A numbing warmth flowed through her body. This kind of feeling is a bit like the first time she touched the blood vein bell. But it's more intense. Then, she sees the originally closed blue flower bud, petal by petal, open. Ning Zhongbai, who has just walked inside with Ning Yu's support, sees this scene. Within the blossoming petals, there's a shocking scene that he will never forget in this life. There seems to be a huge explosion in his mind. Ning Zhongbai's body softens, and he falls down. He mournfully cries, little sister, little sister. How could this be, my poor Yener? How could they do this to you? Even Ning Yu's face turns pale when she sees this scene, and she's on the verge of collapse, forgetting to support her father. Ning Fuxing also falls to the ground. But what he feels more is not pain and shock, but fear. Especially when that pair of bloody eyes looked at him. He feels as if his throat is being choked, unable to breathe. Almost at the same time as the blue flower bud blooms, Di Mingju covers Mayan's eyes and holds her in his arms. Even the experienced and knowledgeable Jun Shangdaren is shocked speechless for a long time. Even he didn't know that there's such inhumane torture in this world. There's actually such a bloody and cruel family in this world, treating their children and grandchildren as pigs and dogs. Within the flower bud, there was a woman floating along with the current. But at this time, she can't even tell if she's alone. Because more than half of her body is already missing. That's in the truest sense of the word. Whether it's skin, flesh, or bones, they've all been bitten full of holes. And in the remaining intact body, there are countless thin tubes, like the meridians of plants. These tubes are like blood-sucking worms, nibbling away at her life little by little. But this isn't the most terrifying thing. The most despairing thing is that the nibbled flesh and bones grow back. When the Great Jade Reincarnation Array realizes that the offering is about to die, it will stop devouring, and turn to feed its vitality back to the offering. Until the offering was as good as new. Only then would the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation begin the next round of devouring. Life and death, the cycle repeated until his soul collapsed and he completely perished. This kind of torture and endless despair. Just thinking about it was enough to make one's scalp tingle. And Mayan's mother, Ning Yanqin, has been here for a full 20 years. It was unknown how many reincarnations he had experienced. His body was broken, mended, healed, and broken again. He couldn't die even if he wanted to. Living was more painful and desperate than dying. It was eerily quiet next to the pool. Only Ning Zhongbai's uncontrollable sobs and the sound of bubbles in the pool echoed in everyone's ears. Mayan tightly clutches Di Mingju's lapels, burying her face in his arms. Only this familiar embrace and warmth could give her strength and courage. Let her face everything in front of her. That was her biological mother. Although they had never spent much time together, he had carried her for 10 months before giving birth to her. Mu Yan thinks that if she could, her mother would also be eager to stay by her side and take care of her as she grows up. Just like how she dotes on Xiao Bao. Alluring Enchantress, heaven-defying baby black-bellied dad, please collect. Chapter 37:19. At that time, Ning Yanxin's heart was like dead ashes, and she bid farewell to her father. In the past 20 years, what kind of despair and helplessness, what kind of hellish torture she experienced day after day. Mu Yan takes a deep breath, pushes Di Mingju away, and approaches the blue bud. She reaches out to help Ning Yanxin up, but finds that her outstretched hand is trembling, and she doesn't know where to put it. In the bud, that pair of bloody eyes suddenly turns and falls on Mu Yan, not even blinking for a moment. It's clearly a scene like a horror movie, but Mu Yan finally lets a drop of tears fall from her eyes. She bites the tip of her tongue, takes out the Tian Mo Qin, and slowly plays it. Like crying and complaining, like crying in grief. She uses the Shin musician skills, and also uses the sound of the zither to tell Ning Yanxin. Mother, I am Jun Mu Yan, your daughter. I'm coming to save you. Mother, do you hear me? With the melodious sound of the zither, Mu Yan randomly launches all kinds of Shin musician skills. She doesn't know how to save Ning Yanxin at all. She can only try one by one, and work hard. Finally, the realm of stars is effective. Ning Yanxin's body begins to gradually recover. A pale and weak, but still beautiful face appears in front of everyone. But when Mu Yan wants to pull Ning Yanxin out of the blue bud, she finds that she can't do it at all. Mu Yan, calm down, listen to me. Qi Huang's cautious and worried voice comes into her ears. I finally found the relevant records about this jade virtual reincarnation array. In fact, it wasn't originally called this, and it's not something that a spirit cultivator and array master can construct. This is a kind of evil array that is fused with curse techniques, called the Hell Rebirth Array. The array's core is made of the most mean and evil things in the world, and it can autonomously choose sacrificial offerings to maintain the operation of the array, and then grow little by little. Once it becomes a sacrificial offering, the body will gradually integrate with the Hell Rebirth Array, and become inseparable. If the array is destroyed, the person is destroyed. If the array is broken, the person dies. If the sacrificial offering is forcibly separated from the Hell Rebirth Array, the sacrificial offering will turn into bones in an instant, and the soul will fly away and scatter. You're the next sacrifice. If you stay here for a long time, the Hell Rebirth formation might choose you, a more powerful and suitable sacrifice. Even that pretty boy Luo Yunxiao won't be able to hold on for long. Mu Yan sharply interrupts him. What do you mean by saying these words? Are you saying that no matter what I do, I can't save my mother, so I should just abandon her? After yelling, she covered her face with her hands to hide the hot tears that were gushing out of her eyes. Using his divine sense, he said to Seven Brilliants, I'm sorry, Seven Brilliants. My attitude just now wasn't good. I'm not blaming you. Once again, she realized how powerless she was. He clearly had medical skills. She is obviously a Shin musician who is proficient in medicine, martial arts, and alchemy. However, she could not save her master, Shi Qing, nor could she save her mother, Ning Yanqin. Behind him, Di Mingju's eyes are filled with distress. He wanted to reach out and pull her into his embrace. But in the end, he could only gently press his hand on her shoulder and tell her that he was always behind her. You are. Mu. Yen, a hoarse and sluggish voice suddenly rings in her ears, making Mu Yen jerk her head up. Ning Yanqin, who has just recovered her body thanks to the realm of stars, has a blank expression. It's like her mind has already collapsed and gone haywire. Like the Enchantress of medicine, heaven-defying baby, black-bellied dad, please collect. Chapter 37:20. Even when he looked at her before, there was no focus in his eyes. But at this moment, when Mu Yen meets those eyes again, she sees her own reflection there. She opens her mouth, wanting to say something, but finds that her throat is choked and she can't speak. You are. Mu Yen, Ning Yanqin's lips squirm with difficulty, and she asks again. It's not that her body is weak, but she has been suffering in this pool for 20 years in this flower bud, and almost forgot how to speak. Mu Yen bites her lip and nods. She reaches out to hold her and let her lean on her arms. Then she whispers, my surname is June, my name is Mu Yen. Ning Yanqin looks at her blankly. Has it been so many years? How did the child who smiled at her in swaddling clothes grow so big? So beautiful, so dazzling. Not exactly like her, but also different from June Shiyuan. But she doesn't know why, at first sight, such a thought comes to her mind. This is Mu Yen. This is Ning Yanqin's daughter. Ning Zhongbai stumbles over at this time. Seeing Ning Yanqin in the flower bud, he can't help crying, little sister, why are you so stupid? You could have run away, why did you come back? Second brother. Ning Yanqin's eyelids blink again, why are you here? She turns her eyes and sees Ning Fuxing who has lost his soul, and Ning Yu who is supporting Ning Zhongbai. There is also Di Mingju who is carefully guarding Mu Yen, and his eyes never move away from her. Ning Yanqin suddenly understands something. The corner of her mouth pulls up into a faint curve. The Ning family is finished, isn't it? Both Mu Yen and Ning Zhongbai are stunned. Ning Fuxing, who is beside the flowing goblet pool, seems to wake up suddenly and hysterically shouts, yes, the Ning family is finished. Completely ruined by your daughter, June Mayan. In order to save you, she turned the Ning family upside down and killed the old ancestor. Ning Yanqin, are you satisfied now? Ning Yanqin's face twitches slightly, then she looks at Mu Yen and slowly says, yes. No wonder you're my daughter. Mayan's face is a little red, and her heart is inexplicably surging with a strange emotion. It was as if he had received the praise of a beloved elder, and he could not conceal his excitement and agitation. At the same time, she was shocked by Ning Yanqin's perseverance and willpower. He had been trapped in the dark pool for so long, experiencing day after day of hellish torture. Loneliness, despair, there was no end in sight. If it were an ordinary person, regardless of whether they were willing or forced at the beginning, they would have gone mad after 20 years. However, Ning Yanqin was only in a trance at the beginning, but she soon returns to normal. Mayan is aware that her mind is far superior to that of ordinary people. Ordinary physical torture was almost unable to make her change her expression. However, she couldn't guarantee that she wouldn't break down if she lived like Ning Yanqin for 20 years. Ning Fuxing's face twisted at Ning Yanqin's words. He rushed over and wanted to hit Ning Yanqin. Unfilial daughter. I'll beat you to death, you unfilial daughter. If you hadn't seduced the devil, if you hadn't given birth to this death-seeking daughter, how could my Ning family have fallen to such a state? Ning Yanqin, I will strangle you with my own hands to give an explanation to the ancestors of the Ning family. Charming witch doctor, heaven-defying baby, black-bellied dad, please collect. Chapter 37:21. But before he can rush to Ning Yanqin, Mu Yan suddenly backhandedly stabs him. The 7 absolute sword pierces Ning Fuxing's shoulder and the bottom of the pool, nailing him firmly to the bottom. Gurgle. Bubbles of panic come up with bright red blood. The clear pool water becomes muddy, and Ning Fuxing's panicked face can be vaguely seen below. Help, help, help me, Ning Zhongbai can't bear it, so he dives down and pulls out the 7 absolute sword. Ning Fuxing rushes to the surface of the water and gasps for breath. He looks at Mu Yan with resentment and fear, but he doesn't dare to act rashly again. Mu Yan has come to the edge of the pool with the blue flower bud. She meets Ning Yanqin's eyes and whispers, "Bear with it a little longer, I will find a way to get you out." The smile on Ning Yanqin's mouth slowly fades, but then it becomes gentle and calm again. That pair of eyes that were 70 to 80% similar to Mu Yan stared deeply at Mu Yan, as if he wanted to deeply engrave her appearance into his bones. "All these years, how have you been living alone? Can you tell me? I really want to know." Mu Yan is the next sacrifice. She can't stay in the Hell Rebirth array for long. Now is not a good time to tell a story. But facing Ning Yanqin's focused and gentle eyes, Mu Yan can't refuse. She simply describes her growth in the Yanwu continent, step by step across the Xiuzhen continent, and came to the floating island. She doesn't talk about those pains and tribulations. Instead, she focuses on the fact that she has a child who is so cute that it can melt people's hearts. His name is Xiao Bao. She has a husband who is in love with each other, who has accompanied her all the way from the Yanwu continent. She also has fellow apprentices, the Xiaoyao sect, and superb medical skills. Mu Yan looks down at the woman in her arms. Ning Yanqin's appearance seems to be fixed at the moment when she was in her 20s. She has obviously suffered so much, but her eyes are still as clear as ice crystals, as clear as colored glass. It's not innocence, nor is it naivety. But after 1,000 years, no one and nothing can shake the tranquility and detachment of her mind. Mu Yan said softly, "I have Liberty City. You can live with me. Xiao Bao will accompany you every day. My medical skills are very good. No matter what illness you have, I can cure it for you." After a pause, her voice became slightly hoarse. "Maybe not this time, but I promise I will find a way to get you out of here. Trust me." Ning Yanqin gently smiled and softly said, "I believe you. But..." She lowered her eyes. "But there's no need. Being able to see you today, my wish has been fulfilled. After you leave, destroy this Hell Rebirth formation along with me." Ning Zhongbai had just come ashore. When he heard this, he felt like a knife was twisting in his heart. Don't be like this. As long as he's not dead, we still have hope, right? Mayan's husband is the polar domain's monarch. He's so powerful, he'll definitely think of a way to save you. Hearing that, Ning Yanqin's body trembled. Her gaze turns towards Di Mingju, and she says in a daze, "Polar domain's sovereign monarch. Are you from the cultivation continent?" Di Mingju knit his brows and said in a low voice, "No matter who I am or what my identity is, Mayan is my wife. I swear, I will never let her down in this life." Chapter 37:22. Ning Yanqin's expression softens a bit, but there's a bit of sadness in her eyes. But she doesn't say anything more, and just says softly, "As long as you know who you are, and who you like, it's enough." Ning Zhongbai quickly says, "That's right. Yan, even if you don't think about yourself and Mu Yan, you should think about brother-in-law." At that time, Jun Shiyuan risked his life to break into the Ning family again and again in order to save you, to be with you for a long time. What he couldn't do even if he risked his life, now you and his daughter have done it. Shouldn't you be happy, shouldn't you have hope? Ning Yanqing listens in a daze. Looking at the ceiling, the corners of her lips suddenly curve up, revealing a light smile. This smile accentuates the outline of her originally bloodless face, making it incomparably beautiful and tender. It was like a distant and indifferent black and white ink painting had suddenly been added with thick ink and heavy colors. Jun Shiyuan ah, she sighs softly and murmurs, like a lover's soft whisper, and also like a low call. Tears unwittingly fall from her eyes. Ning Zhongbai sees that she has a reaction at the mention of Jun Shiyuan, and quickly says excitedly, yes, if brother-in-law's spirit is in heaven, he wouldn't want you to give up your life so easily. No, he isn't. Ning Yanqing says lightly, Jun Shiyuan, he's still alive. What? Ning Zhongbai is shocked, how is that possible? That day, Ning Su went crazy, and the old ancestor was ruthless. How could brother-in-law survive? If he survived, why didn't he save you? Compared to Ning Zhongbai, Mu Yan is very clear that Jun Shiyuan is still alive. Otherwise, she wouldn't have that inexplicable engagement. However, Ning Yanqing's expression is very strange when she mentions Jun Shiyuan. It didn't seem like nostalgia, nor did it seem like joy. Instead, there was a hint of indifference, as if his heart had died. Mu Yan's heart skips a beat, and she's about to ask her what happened at that time. Suddenly, the water in the Lu Miao pond begins to tumble violently. What's going on? Ning Zhongbai looks at the blood vein bell on Mu Yan's waist, and can't help but exclaim, Mu Yan, look. Mu Yan looks down. She sees that the blood vein bell on her waist is also wrapped with thin tubes. These tubes silently spread out of the water. It is drilling into Mu Yan's body. She didn't even notice it. Di Mingju raises his hand and slashes out with sword energy. Dozens of pipes were instantly severed. However, Ning Yanqing, who was in the flower bud, showed a painful expression. The tubes wrapped around her body also began to shake violently. The pipes in the pond climb up like water plants, their movements incomparably swift and nimble as they drill into Mayan's body. At the same time, Qi Wen's nervous voice came from outside the mist. Master can't hold on any longer. The barrier is too fragile. If we're not careful, the formation will collapse. Once the array collapses, Mayan will have Di Mingju, so there won't necessarily be a problem. However, Ning Yanqing would definitely die. Di Mingju embraces Mayan and says in a low voice, let's go out first, we'll think of a way later. Mayan nods. She knew her priorities. Of course, she didn't want Ning Yanqing to suffer here. However, he had already waited for 20 years, so a moment longer was not a big deal. In any case, as long as people are still alive, there is a glimmer of hope. Ningyu also quickly pulls Ning Zhongbai up. Father, let's go out first. If the Great Jade Virtual Reincarnation Array collapses, Ant will be dead. Alluring Enchantress, heaven-defying baby black-bellied dad, please collect. Chapter 37-23. Ning Zhongbai grabs Ning Yanqing's hand and refuses to let go. But in the end, he lets go with red eyes. Ning Zhongbai turns around and sees Ning Fuxing lying on the ground. Ning Fuxing has no cultivation now, and his body is extremely old and weak because of being exposed to the sun. In the end, he still can't bear it, and bends down to pull Ning Fuxing up. The water in the pool is tumbling more and more violently. It's like a pool of water is boiling. Countless red translucent tentacles swarms out of the pool, flying towards them. The Hell Rebirth Array doesn't want you, the new sacrifice, to escape. Qi Huang frowned and said, Jun Mayan, run faster. If you're really entangled by the Hell Rebirth Formation, Avicii beard, you'll be infected by the curse buried in the heart of the formation. Unless this formation is destroyed, the Hell Rebirth Formation will follow you wherever you go. Mayan curses in a low voice. Where did the Ning family get such an evil thing? Qi Huang sneered. Ning Kunshan, that old bastard, doesn't tell the truth. When you go back, you can ask Chu Moli, that little pervert, whether or not the Yuan-destroying devil soul curse is a normal curse, and whether or not it can be infected by some ancient battlefield. And this Hell Rebirth Array, even I feel that there's something wrong with what it contains. From the first time he approached the pool, he vaguely sensed a strange aura. It made him yearn and fear it. He was greedy and excited, but also disgusted and irritable. The things contained in a small Ning family are frightening. Mayan frowns, and then sighs. Even if it's fake, so what? Ning Kunshan is dead, and the rest of the Ning family are obviously just his pawns. They don't know anything. Even if I want to find someone to ask, I can't find. Before she can finish her words, Ning Yu suddenly screams from behind. Father! Ning Fuxing, what do you want to do to my father? Mayan quickly turns around. The red tentacles have already surged over like a tide, getting closer and closer to Ning Yu and the other two. Ning Fuxing is dragged by Ning Zhongbai to flee. He vaguely feels something cold drilling into the back of his neck. A sharp pain came from the flesh on his back. He screamed and grabbed the red tentacle with a backhand. But when he turned around, he saw an overwhelming red tide surging towards him. It was as if it had opened its bloody mouth and wanted to swallow him whole. Ning Fuxing's eyes were filled with extreme fear. He remembered the first time he saw Ning Yanxin in the blue flower bud. If he was caught by those tentacles, would he end up like Ning Yanxin? No. He could not die. He had yet to complete the task entrusted to him by his ancestors. Ning Fuxing glanced at Ning Zhongbai, who was half dragging and half hugging him. A guilty look appeared on his face. In the next moment, he gritted his teeth, grabbed Ning Zhongbai's hand, and pushed him behind him. Ning Zhongbai was born and raised by him. Wasn't it a matter of course to die for him? Ning Yu was caught off guard by this turn of events. She could only watch as her father was completely engulfed by the red tentacles. She was almost frightened out of her wits. When he came back to his senses, he immediately raised his sword and charged forward. The sword light whistled, and the red tentacles trembled violently. One by one, they fell and melted into water. Ning Zhongbai, who was wrapped inside, was also revealed. Ning Yu was overjoyed, and she was about to rush forward to rescue her father. Charming witch, heaven-defying baby, black-bellied dad, please collect. Chapter 37-24. Ning Yu is overjoyed, and is about to rush forward to save her father. But she suddenly feels a cold pain in her hands and feet. Then, the strength in her body seems to be drained. The hand holding the sword softens, and she can't hold it anymore. Then countless tentacles rush up, scrambling to wrap around her body, and drill into her eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. Mayan's complexion changes greatly, and she quickly wants to turn back to save Ning Yu and Ning Zhongbai. Di Mingju presses her shoulder with one hand, and a black sword light flies out from his palm. Crackle, 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 blue sparks of lightning spread across the surface of the pool. A bolt of lightning strikes down. The red tentacles begin to shake violently. Then, they are shaken little by little, and fall down like raindrops. The water of the entire pond is shaking wildly, like fear, and also like anger. Ning Yu and Ning Zhongbai fall to the ground together. Their breathing is weak, but in the end, they still escaped. Mayan breathes a long sigh of relief. Outside, Chi Wen's voice is getting more and more anxious. Mei Yanyan, come out quickly. The barrier passage really can't hold on any longer. Di Mingju's mind slightly moves, and the black lightning turns into a long whip. It coils around Ning Zhongbai and Ning Yu on the ground, and directly throws them towards the exit of the passage. Ning Fuxing sees that he's the only one left, and immediately cries out in horror, "Don't leave me. Zhongbai, I am your father, are you going to watch me die without saving me? Jun Mayan, I am your grandfather. If you kill me, you won't have a good end." However, this time, Ning Zhongbai and Ning Yu are still unconscious. Mayan and Di Mingju, who would care about him? The two go straight to the exit of the passage. Ning Fuxing looks at their backs, and his eyes are about to split open. His face is twisted, and his eyes are crimson. There's a desperate madness and resentment in the bottom of his eyes. Suddenly, he pulls out his blood-pattern bell, bites his wrist and drips his blood on it. As the blood drips into the blood-pattern bell, the water in the pond, which had gradually calmed down because of Di Mingju's thunderous deterrence, begins to boil again. The blue flower bud began to slowly close. Ning Yanxin struggled to sit up from the bud and watched Ning Fuxing's every move. Her eyes were as cold as frost, and she said in a low voice as if she was talking to herself, "Father, so many years have passed, but you haven't changed at all." Ning Fuxing naturally did not hear her voice. The smile on his face became more and more crazed and sinister, his eyes staring straight at Mu Yen. He suddenly laughs hysterically, "Jun Mayan, do you think you can still escape? Heaven's justice is clear, and retribution is not pleasant. You destroyed the Ning family and betrayed the blood relatives who raised you. You are destined to die a horrible death. The ancestor has already arranged the Yellow Springs Road for you. Go to hell. Go to hell. Go to hell. Ha 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 ha." Hearing the mad barking of a mad dog behind him, the killing intent in Di Mingju's eyes suddenly surges like raging waves. Seeing that these people are Mayan's blood relatives, he wants to spare their dog lives. Now, it seemed that this decision was wrong. From the very beginning, he should have dismembered all these people who dared to plot against Mu Yen into 10,000 pieces. It's just that Di Mingju didn't have the time to make his move. He suddenly feels that his side is empty. Mayan is gone. Then the earth shakes, like waves rolling over and over. In the blink of an eye, the thick fog pervades, and Di Mingju and the others have already arrived outside the array. Only Mu Yen has disappeared without a trace. Di Mingju simply can't believe his eyes. Chapter 37-25. The panic and killing intent in Di Mingju's heart burst like a blazing flame. The space around him began to distort and break. The black long sword soared into the sky, and the surrounding spiritual power and immortal power frantically surged to the long sword. For a moment, it seemed to gather a power that could destroy the world. This slash of the sword was enough to cause the entire world to collapse. No! Ning Zhongbai opened his eyes in a daze, and was almost scared out of his wits when he saw this scene. He recklessly rushed over, grabbed Di Mingju's clothes, and cried, "If the virtual jade reincarnation array is destroyed, Mayan can be saved, but little sister will die. Emperor, I beg you, don't destroy the array, leave little sister a way out. I beg you." Di Mingju's ice-blue eyes had been dyed blood red. He looked down at Ning Zhongbai, without a trace of warmth in his eyes. "You want to leave Ning Yanxin a way out, so you want Mayan to take her place. When you gave the blood vein bell to Mayan, you had this idea, didn't you? Your Ning family is really selfish and cold-blooded." Ning Zhongbai's face suddenly paled, and his body trembled like a sieve. He lowered his head, not daring to look at the man's cold eyes. He just sobbed in a low voice, the sacrifice of the virtual jade reincarnation array has no way out, unless a new sacrifice is used to replace it. Little sister has been tortured for more than 20 years, and her vitality will soon be exhausted, and her soul will scatter. But the new sacrifice won't, and we still have a lot of time to think of a way to save her. Father, are you crazy? Ningyu looked at the man with a face full of guilt, and couldn't believe his ears. Mayan trusted you so much, and treated you as a close relative. How could you plot against her like this? Didn't you see what Aunt Yanqin was like just now? Do you have the heart to let Mayan suffer like this? Ning Zhongbai couldn't help crying. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I know I'm sorry for Mayan, but I have no choice. Little sister has suffered so much for the Ning family, I can't just watch her die. The Star Wolf longsword was suddenly unsheathed. He looked at Ning Zhongbai with disgust and said coldly, "My lord, let this subordinate kill him." Before Miss June could come out, he would kill her. She didn't want this group of disgusting people to use family affection as an excuse for moral coercion, making Miss June unable to do it. Ning Yu's expression changed, and she hurriedly rushed to stand in front of Ning Zhongbai. She was also sad and angry at what her father had done. However, it was even more impossible for her to watch her father die. But Di Mingju already has no interest in giving them another glance. The black longsword that had already taken shape received the order and slashed down from the sky. But before he could touch the thick fog, he was stopped by a dozen long swords that glinted with cold light. Di Mingju suddenly looks at Luo Yunxiao, his eyes as sharp as a knife. "Even you want to stop me?" Luo Yunxiao's face was pale. Her figure suddenly seemed so frail in the cold wind. He moved his chapped lips and slowly said, "Anyone can destroy this formation, but you can't. Even if there were thousands of reasons, even if it was to save Mayan. As long as Di Mingju destroyed the virtual jade reincarnation formation, he would become Ning Yanqin's murderer. Mayan might be able to forgive him, but she would certainly be heartbroken, pained, and blamed herself. Ning Yanqin's death would become a rift between the two of them that could never be mended. Charming Enchantress of the city, Heaven-defying baby's black-bellied father. The correct chapter will continue to be updated on Handplay Bar. There are no advertisements on the site, so please collect and recommend Handplay Bar. If you like Charming Enchantress of the city, Heaven-defying baby's black-bellied father, please collect.
Chapter 37-26. Luo Yunxiao's expression is calm, and her voice is indifferent, as if she's talking about the most common thing. "I'll do it. He'll destroy the virtual jade reincarnation array, and kill Ning Yanqin. At least Mayan won't be so painful and sad. At least Mayan can be with her beloved in the future, without any grudges, without estrangement. As for him, anyway, he should die, fall into hell, and never be reincarnated. What's the difference if one more person hates him and alienates him? Even if that person is Mayan." 12 long swords float in the air, and the rustling swords are aimed at the virtual jade reincarnation array. However, before the long swords can fly out, a shocking change happens at this time. Jingle. 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 The sweet sound of the bell rings in her ears, like hypnosis, but also like a soul-snatching chase. Mayan feels as if all the strength in her body has been taken away. Something cold and slippery keeps drilling into her body. The pain becomes numb little by little. Her soul doesn't seem to be her own, slowly floating outside, unable to control her stiff and powerless body. Goo goo goo. Mom, Mom. Boo hoo hoo, Mom, open your eyes and look at Huang Huang. A shrill cry kept drilling into her mind. Goo goo goo. Bad bug. Don't touch Mom. I'll beat you. Slowly, Mayan feels that her lost strength seems to be coming back. Her floating soul returns to its original position. She struggles to open her eyes, but before she can see the scene in front of her, The furry dumpling immediately pounced on his face. Mayan pulls the fluffy ball off her face with great difficulty, and looks at the little chick in surprise. Huang Huang, why are you here? The little chick flattens its mouth, crying and squawking. The meaning to Mayan is, Mom, you're finally awake. Huang Huang thought that he would become a motherless child, like a blade of grass. Mom, Dad is bad, Huang Huang tipped him off, but he ran away without taking Huang Huang. How did Huang Huang come here? Huang Huang smelled his mom's scent and came here. You asked me how I got in here. Huang Huang doesn't know. Didn't we just walk in? Mu Yan, she suddenly didn't know what to say. What do you mean by, I came over because I smelled my mother's scent? You think you're a dog? Wake up. Huang Huang, you're clearly chicky, alright? What did he mean by walking in? Even she and young Martial Uncle couldn't break this Hell Rebirth array. With Di Mingju's heaven-defying cultivation, there was no other way but to destroy the array. After the array was closed, even her connection with Qi Huang was cut off. You actually walked in? The little chick tilted its head, not understanding why its mother was looking at it like that. Did he think that Huang Huang was especially obedient and sensible? He could even obediently return to his mother's side? Puffing out her chest with a proud face. But very soon, it began to cry and pout again.
Because there were still a lot of long, bad bugs wrapped around her body. It's all because of these bugs that my mother can't wake up. The little chick really wanted to peck and eat them all. But these insects were so hard. Huang Huang couldn't peck, so it couldn't save its mother. Boo-hoo-hoo. Mu Yan pats Huang Huang's head and can't help but smile. Thinking about it carefully, ever since she picked up Huang Huang, she didn't know how many times it had saved her. Alluring Enchantress, heaven-defying baby black-bellied dad, please collect. Chapter 37:27. It's the same this time. Just now, when all her strength and even her soul were almost sucked out, she felt desperate. Fortunately, Huang Huang's cry brought her back to her senses. Mu Yan's eyes looked around. She was floating on the quicksilver pond. Below her was a huge blue lotus leaf. On the lotus leaf, countless transparent tentacles that made people's scalp tingle extended out and drilled into her body. The tentacles were shaking desperately, trying to extract the soul essence from her body. But for some reason, they couldn't succeed. So most of the tentacles were pure transparent, but there were dozens of tentacles that showed a light pink color. Mu Yan could probably imagine. If she really lost consciousness just now, and these tentacles completely merged with her body and soul, then the lotus leaf under her body would turn into a blue bud, and then unscrupulously devour her body, making her recover, and falling into a hellish nightmare. Just like Ning Yanqin. But because Little Chick was around, she didn't know why these tentacles became particularly unlucky. They desperately wanted to extract the soul essence from her body and merge with her soul, but they always encountered various accidents and couldn't succeed. For example, they didn't absorb the soul essence, but the barren impurities in her body were sucked away, causing hundreds of transparent tentacles to wither at once. But Mu Yan knew. No matter how good Little Chick's luck was, it was impossible to support her out of danger. If this went on, she would lose the ability to resist and become a fish on the chopping block of the Hell Rebirth formation. Not far from Mu Yan, the blue bud that originally wrapped Ning Yanqin had closed again. She couldn't see the current Ning Yanqin. She could only see that the color of the blue bud was gradually fading. Mu Yan slowly lowered her head and looked at the ringing blood pattern bell on her waist. She suddenly realized something. When her uncle put the blood pattern bell on her, he told her never to take it off. Later, she found that this blood pattern bell couldn't be taken off no matter what. And there was only one way to open the Hell Rebirth formation, and that was to use the blood pattern bell as a guide to open the passage for the Hell Rebirth formation. Now, she was about to become the new sacrifice. And the color of Ning Yanxin's bud was getting fainter and fainter. Did that mean that there was only one way to save her mother? It was to replace the old offering with a new one. Mu Yan exhales softly. She knew that her uncle, Ning Zhongbai, had been plotting against her from the beginning, so she wasn't that angry. Everyone has a close and distant relationship. To Ning Zhongbai, perhaps saving his sister had become his obsession. It was understandable that he wanted to use himself in exchange for Ning Yanxin's release. However, Ning Zhongbai probably had the wrong idea. Because Di Mingju will not allow him to do so. Mayan stares blankly at the blue flower bud across from her, her brows tightly wrinkling. She didn't want to sacrifice herself for Ning Yanxin. She did not want her mother to continue to suffer or die. Was there no way to get the best of both worlds? No. There will be. There must be. Ha. Ha 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 ha. Suddenly, an excited and deranged laughter reaches Mayan's ears. It turns out that this is the vitality that the Jade Virtual Rebirth formation gives to the Ning family. It turns out that this is the gift from our ancestors. Old ancestor, I know. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, allowing me to punish the traitor and revive the Ning family. Alluring Enchantress, heaven-defying baby black-bellied dad, please collect. Chapter 37-28. It was Ning Fuxing's voice. Mu Yan turns around and sees his current appearance. Her heart instantly sinks. Ning Fuxing, who was originally weak and old after his cultivation was destroyed, had now regained his appearance. No, he looked even younger than before, and his spiritual energy was even more abundant. Seeing Mu Yan look over, Ning Fuxing stopped laughing and looked her in the eye. The anger, disgust, and disappointment on his face slowly faded, gradually turning into a condescending sigh of pity. Mu Yan, don't blame grandfather, this is your destiny. You didn't have to walk the same path as your mother. The Darkeen sacred flame of the Netherworld region is the purest thing in the world. If you are willing to marry young Master Een as a concubine, then we can borrow their Darkeen sacred flame to burn away the curse on old ancestor, and let the Ning family get rid of the nightmare and prosper. Or, you could have said that you were the fiancé of the Polar Domain's sovereign lord, allowing my Ning family to soar into the sky. Under the protection of the Polar Domain, we would naturally be able to find a way out. The Ning family doesn't need to end up like this, and you don't need to replace your mother as a sacrifice. Mayan sneers at him. Do you think that Di Mingju will let you off, let the Ning family off? Do you think you can get out of this array alive if you turn me into a sacrifice? Mu Yan, you don't know anything. Ning Fuxing sighed slowly. His tone was full of pity, but the expression on his face was extremely sarcastic. You don't understand how terrible and powerful the Jade Virtual Reincarnation formation is. So what if he was an Empyrean Lord of the Polar Domain? As long as you're still in my hands, he won't dare to act rashly. As for me, all I have to do is wait for the grand formation to completely fuse with you, the new offering. I will become the new master of the Jade Virtual Reincarnation formation. At that time, I can order the entire Quicksilver Pond to move away from here without anyone knowing. Even if the Polar Domain's sovereign lord can really think of a way to open the Grand Array, I would have already left by then. The world is so big, how can he find me? As Ning Fuxing spoke, he slowly walked forward. He pinched a blue bead between his fingers. The bead was small and should have been sparkling and translucent, exceptionally beautiful. But at this moment, there were many thin streaks of blood covering it. At first glance, it did not look like an ordinary pearl, but a human eyeball. Ning Fuxing's fascinated eyes fell on the bead. With tears in his eyes, he looked grateful and excited. Old ancestor thought of me like that even before he died, he missed me so much. That's why he gave me the soul stone that controls the jade virtual reincarnation formation, in order to give the Ning family a chance of survival. The ancestor is so selfless and great, but what about you? You didn't understand his painstaking efforts at all and even forced him to his death. June Mayan, I've said it before, you're disloyal, unfilial, selfish, and you'll definitely suffer retribution. Now that you've become a sacrifice for the jade virtual reincarnation formation, you have only yourself to blame. You deserve it. From the moment Ning Fuxing took out the blue bead, Mu Yan felt an indescribable sourness in his heart. She suddenly felt an indescribable sadness. Tears gushed out uncontrollably and rolled down her cheeks. The tentacles, which had been unable to extract the soul origin, suddenly trembled violently. Bursts of powerlessness and pain came from all her limbs and bones. Mu Yan's heart turned cold. She realized that it was this bead that was controlling the tentacles in the quicksilver pond, and also enhancing their power. Charming Enchantress of Medicine, heaven-defying baby, black-bellied dad, please collect. Chapter 37-29. Coo. Mom, what's wrong with you? Little Inghua anxiously jumped around her. But this time, Huang's luck didn't work. Mu Yan only felt that the strength she had accumulated with great difficulty was disappearing little by little. She weakly lay on the lotus leaf, her head covered in cold sweat. Ning Fuxing slowly walked towards her with the blue bead in his hand. As he approached, the water in the flowing goblet pond automatically rolled and parted to form a path. The surging pond water fell onto the lotus leaves, sparkling and translucent like teardrops. Mu Yan's heart suddenly moved. Looking at the blue bead, she said in a low voice, "This is the tear of a ghost." In order to save Ning Xianting, the demon girl Nikhang left behind the precious tear of a ghost. This tear of a ghost could expel all the filth in the world, including curses. Ning Kunchen said that they used the tear of a ghost to expel the yuan-breaking devil soul curse, so it should have disappeared. Ning Fuxing was also stunned when he heard this, then he snorted disdainfully, "What nonsense are you talking about?" The tear of a ghost disappeared when the Ning family eliminated the yuan-breaking devil soul curse 2,000 years ago. This is the soul stone of the jade virtual reincarnation array. What, are you finally afraid when death is at hand? You're even spouting incoherent nonsense. Looking at Ning Fuxing's expression, he was obviously not lying. Mu Yan became more and more certain. The bead in Ning Fuxing's hand was the tear of a ghost. But how could the tear of a ghost that should have disappeared long ago still exist? However, the pain and cold numbness in her body became heavier and heavier. Mu Yan had no energy to think about this anymore. She only felt her head becoming more and more chaotic. The tentacles that drilled into her body were devouring her vitality little by little, fusing her with the array, making her unable to resist. Little Inghua anxiously shouted, jumping up and fiercely pecking at Ning Fuxing's eyes. How could Ning Fuxing put such a little beast in his eyes? He casually swung his hand and directly slapped little Inghua into the water. However, the water splashed over. Ning Fuxing didn't know why his foot slipped and his whole body leaned forward. Now that his cultivation had recovered, he could naturally cope with this accident. The spiritual energy in his body surged, and he steadied himself. However, the blue bead in his hand didn't hold it firmly and flew forward, falling right above the blue flower bud that was wrapped around Ning Yanxin. A pale, thin hand suddenly reached out from the bud and grabbed the bead. Ning Yanxin slowly stood up and looked down at Ning Fuxing and Mu Yan from above. Ning Fuxing's eyebrows twitched, but his face already had the expression of a loving father. He choked and said, Father knows that you have suffered a lot here. Now it is time to set you free. As long as mine replaces you as the new sacrifice, you can be reborn. From now on, no matter what you want to do, Father will not stop you. You've quickly returned the heart formation stone to me, okay? Ning Yanxin slowly curved her lips into a bright smile. She is a person who rarely smiles. Ever since he was young, even when he was the happiest, he would only curl up the corners of his lips slightly, and his eyes sparkled. But at this moment she was laughing so happily, so purely. She was like an innocent little girl, but also like a gentle and loving mother who was guarding her baby. She said softly, "Mu Yen, I'm sorry, I'm not a good mother." Chapter 37:30. Mayan stares blankly, forcing herself to raise her head to look at her. Ning Yanxin continues, "I've never sewn clothes for you, nor raised you for a day. I couldn't see you grow from a baby in swaddling clothes to the slender and elegant girl you are now. All these years, you've been alone. Have you ever been bullied? Have you ever cried alone? When you learned to walk? When you started cultivating? When you had children and loved ones? I don't know any of it." Ning Yanxin closes her eyes and slightly raises her head. But tears still slide down from the corners of her eyes. "In the future, I may still not be able to stay by your side, unable to fulfill my duties as a mother. But at this moment, I, Ning Yanxin, can at least do one thing for my daughter." Her tone is very flat, and her eyes are serene and peaceful. It's like she's telling her to wear more clothes and take care of herself. It's a mother's most common concern and love for her daughter. Then she raises her hand and brings the blue bead to her lips. Mayan suddenly widens her eyes, subconsciously wanting to rush over to stop her. But her body is firmly bound by the transparent tentacles, and she has no strength at all. "No!" Ning Fuxing screams and recklessly pounces over, trying to snatch the bead from her hand. However, he's still a step too late. Ning Fuxing's expression is lifeless, and his eyes gradually become bloodshot. He suddenly grabs Ning Yanxin's neck and roars hysterically, "Ning Yanxin, how dare you? How dare you swallow the heart formation stone? That's the hope of our Ning family's revival. Spit it out. Spit out my heart formation stone. Do you hear me?" Ning Yanxin's pale face is flushed because she's being grabbed by the neck. But her eyes are still emotionlessly looking at her father, angry, crazy, and ferocious. The face that originally looked young and elegant because of the recovery of his cultivation gradually ages and distorts. The hand that's strangling her neck can no longer move because it's powerless. Why? Why? Ning Fuxing bursts into tears. "Ning Yanxin, you're also a member of the Ning family. The Ning family gave birth to you and raised you. How can you betray the Ning family like this?" Ning Yanxin says lightly, "If there's an afterlife, I'd rather be a pig or a dog than be a member of the Ning family." "Afterlife?" Ning Fuxing suddenly let out a shrill laugh. "You've swallowed the core formation stone of the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation. You're about to die. Do you think you have an afterlife? Ning Yanxin, this is your retribution for betraying the Ning family. You and your daughter will not have a good ending." He did not finish his sentence. Countless transparent tentacles shot out from the blue flower bud and pierced into his body. Ning Fuxing let out a painful howl. He poured it into the flower bud. The blue petals did not close, and the transparent tentacles that had burrowed into Ning Fuxing's body began to gnaw away at his flesh and organs. Ning Fuxing was in so much pain that he wanted to die. His initial cursing turned into wailing and begging for mercy. However, Ning Yanxin just looked at him quietly. There was no pity or happiness in her eyes, only sadness and indifference. "Father, how does it feel to be sacrificed as a sacrifice for the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation? Ning Fuxing's face was full of tears, and half of his face was missing. He could not answer because his throat had been swallowed. He could only look at Ning Yanqin with pleading eyes. Chapter 37-31. Don't worry. You're my father. I won't torture you for 20 years. You said that the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation was a gift from the ancestors of the Ning family. Father, since you love this formation so much, then rest in the heart of the formation and accompany him forever. As soon as he finished speaking, Ning Fuxing watched in despair as his entire body exploded into a bloody mist. Goo 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 gee gee gee. Mama. Mummy. That scoundrel died with a bang. He can't bully you anymore. Mu Yan feels that she doesn't know when all the strength in her body has returned. The spiritual power in her body surged, and she suddenly broke free from the transparent tentacles that were still wrapped around her body. As soon as she regained her freedom, she immediately rushed to Ning Yanqin and grabbed her hand. Let's go. I'll take you out of here. Ning Yanqin looked at her blankly and let her pull her towards the direction of the mist. Mu Yan spoke very quickly, raising her voice slightly, as if this could conceal her frantically beating heart and the surging panic in her heart. This is not the Jade Virtual Reincarnation Formation, but the Hell Reincarnation Formation. Its heart formation stone should be the tear of the Nether Ghost that Nikhang of the demon race shed back then. I still haven't found a way to break the formation, but since the tear of the ghost is in your body, the formation should move with you. Let's go back to Liberty City. My third senior brother will definitely find a way. Huang Huang, lead the way and bring us out. Little Inghua hopped in front of the group, chirping something in its mouth. Mu Yan walked very fast and held Ning Yanqin's hand tightly. It was as if he was afraid that if he relaxed a little, she would disappear. Ning Yanqin's eyes were gentle, and a faint smile appeared on her face. There was gentleness and love in her eyes, but there was also reluctance and sorrow that could not be dispelled. Bang! The little chick walked in front of a wall and was suddenly bounced back. It cried out in pain and immediately turned its head to look pitifully at Mu Yan for comfort. Sob sob sob, Huang Huang was clearly able to walk in just now. Why couldn't he get out now? Mayan's heart sinks a little. With a slight movement of his mind, the 7 absolute swords appeared and slashed forward. However, the sword light flashed, but the wall did not move at all. Mayan clenches her teeth. She doesn't believe this. She didn't believe that she wouldn't be able to break a broken array and get out. However, before Mu Yan could make a move, her hand was suddenly grabbed, and her whole body was thrown out by a strong force. Bang! His back slammed heavily against the wall, but what he felt was not pain, but a suction force that he could not break free from. Mu Yan feels that there is a powerful energy that is sending her out of the enchantment. Her pupils suddenly shrank as she looked at Ning Yanqin. He saw that the face of the woman opposite him was pale, and scarlet blood slowly flowed out of her eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. But the smile on her face was serene, tranquil, and filled with bone-piercing gentleness. Mu Yan, live well. At least live a happier life than me. Mu Yan's eyes instantly turned scarlet red. She frantically revolved the energy in her body in an attempt to break free, but the suction force was simply too strong. It was definitely not something that she could contend against. Come with me. I can save you. Trust me, okay? You said that you weren't by my side since I was young, and now you're leaving me. I won't accept this kind of apology. I'll take you out of here. I'll take you to find Jun Shiyuan. He's still alive. Don't you want to see him again? Charming witch doctor, heaven-defying baby, black-bellied dad, please collect. Chapter 37-32. Ning Yanxin seems to be startled. After a long while, her face shows a somewhat sweet and sorrowful smile. She stares at Mayan in a daze, but it seems like she's looking into the distance through her. The Jun Shiyuan that I love is already dead. Or, in my heart, he is already dead. She once thought that it would be good if she had entered the flowing goblet pool without any hatred or complaint, and if she had never met Jun Shiyuan. In this way, her heart might be as still as water for these 20 years, and she wouldn't have to recall the last time that man looked at her. Ruthless, cold, and indifferent. It's like looking at an insignificant stranger. Ning Yanxin closes her eyes. She thinks that she will shed tears. But strangely, the tears don't fall. Perhaps after 20 years, the tears she shed for this man have already dried up. I once regretted meeting and falling in love with him, but now that I think about it, it's not necessary. Because time is the best medicine. The lovesickness and resentment that were once engraved in my bones have long been slowly worn away in these 20 years of torment and pain. It took me a few months to fall in love with him, and then it took me thousands of days and nights to dig him out from my heart little by little. Mayan, if you can see your father one day, tell him for me. Fate comes and goes, fate is preordained. I don't hate him, I only hope that I will never see Jun Changjue again in this lifetime. As soon as her voice falls, the water of the flowing goblet pool behind her violently churns, rolling up monstrous waves. The originally crystal clear water has unknowingly been dyed as red as blood. Mayan's eyes widen, desperately reaching out to pull Ning Yanxin. Ning Yanxin fiercely spits out a mouthful of blood. The snow-white skin of her whole body cracks inch by inch at this moment. The beautiful face becomes ugly and bloody. But those eyes are still so calm and serene, gentle and reluctant. Being able to see you again before I die is already the greatest gift from heaven. Mayan, my daughter, farewell forever. Mother. 20 years ago. The evening breeze is gentle, and fireflies dye the summer. Under the bright moonlight, the cold girl in white plucks the strings of the zither. The sound of the zither lingers, lingering and sorrowful. But the girl's expression was so calm, so indifferent, so lonely. That was his 10,000-year gaze. It was love and attachment that were deeply engraved in their bones. My name is Jun Shiyuan. Hey, don't go. Since I told you my name, shouldn't you tell me yours as well? You asked me why I entered the unclean abyss. Alas, I fell in love with a girl who was as beautiful as a fairy from the heavens, but she was especially difficult to pursue. I pestered her all the way and finally managed to get her to loosen her attitude. Who knew that I would be blocked outside this barrier, so I had to find another way and sneak in through this unclean abyss. Ning Yanxin, why don't you smile? I think you must look good when you smile. Miss Ning, I thought my performance was clear enough. As for me, I liked you from the first time I saw you. In this life, I, Jun Shiyuan, will either be a bachelor or marry you. Yen Axian, you're willing to sleep with me, but you're not willing to marry me. But I still think of you as my wife. I, Jun Shiyuan, swear that in this life, I will only love you. Yen Axian, we have a child. I'm going to be a father, hee hee. Yen Axian, you don't know how happy I am. Alluring Enchantress, heaven-defying baby black-bellied dad, please collect. Chapter 37-33. Jun Shiyuan, do you still remember what I asked for when I agreed to be with you? If I say it begins, it begins. If I say it ends, it ends. The fate between you and me has been exhausted. From now on, you can be a knight-errant, and I'll be the young mistress of the Ning family. We'll never meet again. Great ancestor, don't forget what you promised me. Let Jun Shiyuan go and let him leave the floating island safely. I'm willing to enter the flowing goblet pond as a sacrifice for the Ning family. Ning Yanxin, how dare you enter the flowing goblet pond? How dare you? Yanxin, I beg you, please don't leave me. Ning Yanxin. With bloodshot eyes, the young man watched helplessly as his beloved woman walked into the flowing noodle pond and was completely swallowed up by the hell reincarnation formation. All his reason turned into deep-seated hatred at this moment. His eyes could no longer see, his ears could no longer hear. His mind went blank. The demonic energy in his body exploded. Boom! The flowing goblet pond tumbled violently, and the bottom of the pond was full of cracks. The hell reincarnation formation was on the verge of collapse, as if it would collapse at any time with a light blow. The corpses of the Ning family members lay on the ground beside the pond. Only Ning Kunchen and Ning Su, who had broken through the mysterious immortal realm, passed out. The young man, who was bleeding from his 7 facial orifices and covered with wounds, glowed with red light. A moment later, he was as good as new. It was just that the clothes on his body had already turned into pure black ink. There was no emotion in his eyes anymore. They were cold and indifferent like a bottomless abyss. A familiar yet strange voice rang in his ears. You are my soul, embryonic light, and my 3 spirits, dead dog, crouching arrow, and sparrow een. You've passed all the tribulations in the mortal world and achieved enlightenment. Why don't you return to your place? The voice faded away in his ears. His body was also being pulled, and he was about to disappear from this world. Before leaving, he couldn't help but look back at the center of the flowing goblet pond. There, the blue flower was closing slowly. The woman lying in the pistil of the flower was looking at him quietly. The pair of watery peach blossom eyes seemed to bear thousands of words, but they were silent. The pale lips opened and closed slightly, as if they were calling a name. He couldn't hear it clearly. However, he felt an intense pain in the depths of his soul. It was as if he had forgotten and discarded something more important than his life. But he only had 1 spiritual soul and 3 physical forms. He was emotionless, without love, without desire. To him, everything in the world was but a dream, an illusion, a shadow, a speck of dust. Therefore, he only took a glance before disappearing from the land of the floating island. He saw a teardrop fall from the corner of the woman's eye. He saw the yearning, unwillingness, and deep love in those peach blossom eyes gradually turn into sorrow and despair. How could he have thought of that at that time? That one glance became his nightmare from then on. For all eternity, he would never be able to escape. Shushin continent, under the hidden abyss. Jun Shutian suddenly opened his eyes and left his meditative state. His right hand unconsciously pressed against his chest. He was a pure demonic body that had been cultivated to the peak, so he should no longer have a heart that could be regarded as a weakness like spirit cultivators. But at this moment, he felt a bone-piercing pain under his palm. He dreamed of those eyes again. Since he had woken up 20 years ago, every day and night, whether it was sleeping or cultivating, had been a dream. He would always see those eyes. Chapter 37-34. 20 years, thousands of days and nights. The more he fused with his 1 soul and 3 mortal souls, the more he fused with them. That pair of eyes, that teardrop was deeply imprinted in the depths of his soul. But this was the first time he had woken up feeling so panicked, so lost, and so lonely. It was as if something more important than his life had left him forever and ever. Bang! The surging devil chi uncontrollably burst out from Jun Shutian's body. With a loud bang, the whole palace violently shook, and more than half of it collapsed. Demon Venerable, what happened? Min Wei and Tianhe hurriedly ran in. Seeing the tragic scene in the palace and Jun Shitian's appearance, they jumped in fright. Demon Venerable, why is your face so ugly? Demon Venerable, your eyes. Tianhe's voice trembled, his eyes were full of disbelief. Jun Shitian slowly breathed out a sigh of relief. Just now, when his whole body erupted with devil qi, he felt a burst of tearing pain in his body. But only this kind of pain can relieve the panic and pain in the depths of his soul. He doesn't know why he's in such pain, so mad and angry. He only knows that if he doesn't vent it out, his soul will explode on its own. Hearing Tianhe's words, Jun Shitian subconsciously touched his face with his hand, only to feel a burst of cold. He's crying. Jun Shitian stared at his fingertips in a daze. Why is he crying? Is it because of the one soul and three mortal souls that refuse to fuse with him, crying? His heart suddenly felt an inexplicable irritability and dull pain. He sternly said, "Did the polar domain reply?" Min Wei cautiously said, "The polar domain refused. They said that Medicine King Han Chujiu will not leave the polar domain and Medicine King Hole. The Qinkuan mirror is the most precious treasure of the polar domain, it will not be lent." Tianhe angrily said, "Damn, I already said, those bastards in the polar domain will not help us demons. If you ask me, we should gather the people in the hidden abyss and directly flatten the polar domain. At that time, whether it's people or treasures, they will have to hand it over, even if they don't want to." Min Wei tightly frowned, he couldn't help but stare at Tianhe. "You shut up. Do you know what Di Mingju's current cultivation level is? You keep talking about fighting and killing. Is your head full of shit?" Xue Ji looked at Jun Shitian, her eyes filled with worry, but Demon Venerable's one spiritual soul and three physical souls are still unable to truly fuse together. It has been 20 years, if he still doesn't succeed, I'm afraid there will be repercussions. Zhongli Darren once said that to completely dissipate one soul and three mortal forms, only Medicine King Han Chujiu can do it. The wine boy also said, "Also, Your Highness, Lord Zhongli also predicted that he could only be found through the Three Lives Stone contract or the polar domain's mirror of heaven and earth. No matter what, we must take down the polar domain." Min Wei let out a long sigh. These people had followed Jun Shitian for a very long time. The demon race has never produced a heaven-warping genius like Jun Shitian. They firmly believed that the only one who could unite the demons and make them stand at the peak of the three realms was their demon sovereign. The truth was just as they had expected. 1,000 years ago, Jun Shitian unified the entire demon race with his own strength and became the supreme king in the hearts of all the demon cultivators. However, after that, he was framed by his confidant brother. He was hit by a vicious curse, the lovesickness demon love curse, and his soul almost flew away and scattered. Chapter 37-35. In order to save Jun Shitian, Min Wei and the others tried their best. In the end, they could only send all the lovesickness demonic love curse on Jun Shitian into one soul, the embryonic light, and the three spirits, the dead dog, the crouching arrow, and the sparrow Een, turning him into a baby and sending him down to the mortal world to experience tribulations. Jun Shitian's main body will enter a deep slumber. Birth, old age, sickness, death, resentment, separation from love, unattainable. Although the lovesickness demon love curse was bitter and poisonous, it could not resist the cycle of the mortal world and the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Only after going through all kinds of suffering would the lovesickness demonic love curse be worn away bit by bit. At that time, it would be time for the one soul and 3 physical bodies to return. 20 years ago, one soul and 3 spirits finally broke through the shackles of the lovesickness demon love curse and awakened the sleeping Jun Shitian. He had returned from the tribulation and his soul was complete. Jun Shirtian went on a killing spree in the hidden abyss. He dismembered the previous demon lord who had betrayed him, and once again became the supreme ruler of the demon race. Min Wei and the rest were overjoyed. Their demon lord had returned, and he would lead the entire demon race to achieve immortal feats. However, they soon realized that something was wrong. Jun Shirtian was unable to completely fuse with his one soul and three spirits. No matter if it was power, emotions, or memories, one soul and three spirits were not willing to share with him. He was like a desperate gambler. Even if he had to perish together with his real self, he still wanted to protect the only treasure he had left. Ever since he became an adult, Jun Shirtian had never felt such a threat. But there was nothing he could do. It was only a year ago that he found out that he had a daughter who was wandering outside. Hearing this news, Jun Shirtian, Min Wei, Tianhe, and the rest were dumbfounded. Even if it was a mortal child undergoing tribulation. That was the demon venerable's one spiritual soul and three physical bodies. There was a Tao in heaven and earth, and there were rules in all things. Even for spirit cultivators, the higher their cultivation, the harder it was for them to have children. Not to mention a fiendish cultivator who cultivated by gathering the hidden fiendish qi of heaven and earth, completely disregarding the cycle of life and death. That was Jun Shirtian's daughter. How could he allow her to wander outside? But the problem is, other than the fact that he has a daughter, Jun Shirtian has no way of digging out the other memories from his soul and three spirits. He wanted to find his daughter and regain his peak strength. He could only fuse with one soul and three physical forms as soon as possible. Demon Lord. From afar, a demon race guard flew over and landed in front of Jun Shirtian. He knelt down on one knee and said, "Greetings, Demon Lord. An envoy from the Nether Realm has come to see you." Tianhe said impatiently, "What do these idiots want now? Don't tell me I'm going to change the marriage contract again. Tell them to get lost. That idiot Yin Yuanyi doesn't even deserve to carry shoes for our princess." The demon guard hurriedly said, "That's not it. The one who sent the message was Elder Yu Qin of the Nether Realm. He said that the Nether Realm hopes to ally with the demon race again and immediately attack the polar domain." Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Tianhe said in disbelief, "Weren't those cowards from the Nether Realm scared by the polar domain last time? Why are you suddenly mobilizing your troops now?" Yao Dao's eyes flashed and looked at Jun Shirtian, "Demon, no matter what the purpose of the Netherworld is, if we want to snatch Medicine King Han Chuzhou and Universe Mirror from the polar domain, we can only do it with the help of the Netherworld." No matter how arrogant and prideful the demons were. They also don't think that they can fight against the entire polar domain by relying on the power under the hidden abyss. Yin Wuji didn't hesitate to enter into a marriage contract with their missing demon princess. He wants to use the demon race's power to deal with Di Mingju. Alluring Enchantress, heaven-defying baby black-bellied dad, please collect.
Chapter 37-36. How could they not have the same idea? Min Wei gritted his teeth and said, "Demon Lord, your situation cannot be delayed any longer. Why don't we form an alliance with the Nether Domain again? This time, in addition to grabbing Han Chuzhou and Qiankuan Mirror, Demon Venerable, you might as well cough, it might be better to directly grab the little Gongzi." This subordinate heard rumors that the little young master might not be the polar domain sovereign's biological son. The people in the polar domain were all cold and didn't have the slightest bit of humanity. Who knew whether the little Gongzi would be bullied there or not? This time, we might as well snatch the young master over. We'll definitely provide him with good food and drinks. We won't let the young master suffer even the slightest grievance. The snow girl was eager to try. She said excitedly, "At that time, I will take care of the young master. I have long wanted to raise such a cute child like the young master." Jun Shirtian was startled. A small and delicate face appeared in his mind. Thinking that someone in the polar domain would bully that little doll, an indescribable killing intent welled up in Jun Shutian's heart. He said coldly, "Bring him to the front hall." The demon guards quickly bowed in response and quickly retreated. Min Wei stared at their departing figures, his gaze involuntarily turning to the north where the polar domain was located, and he lightly sighed. He didn't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing for the demon venerable to fuse with one soul and three spirits. Floating Island, Maomu City. Mother. Mu Yen suddenly opens her eyes and sits up on the bed. She had a very long dream. He dreamed of many messy scenes. Some are sweet, some are sad. Ning Yenxin's gentle and kind smile was fixed on the blood mist that was splashing everywhere. His body shivered inexplicably. Images flashed through his mind like a flashing lantern. But she didn't want to think about it. Just like an ostrich, as long as it buried the surging memories in its mind. She could pretend that Ning Yenxin was still alive. Yen, don't be like this. Her cold body was pulled into a warm and familiar embrace. Mayan's buzzing ears hear Di Mingju's voice, unable to hide his heartache. "If you do this, my heart will ache." His arms tightened around her. It was as if he wanted to pass his own warmth to her. Yen, you still have me and Xiao Bao. We will always be with you. Mayan stares blankly for a good while before she suddenly reaches out and tightly hugs Di Mingju. Tears unwittingly flow out, wetting Di Mingju's clothes. After a long while, Di Mingju hears the girl say in a low, sobbing voice, "Di Mingju, I won't have a mother in the future. I just found her, but I lost her forever. I'm really scared. I'm scared that I'll end up with nothing like I did in my previous life."
I didn't meet you, and I didn't have little treasure. I'm scared that everything now is just a dream. Her slender hands hug Di Mingju. She's obviously already hugging him so tightly, but she still feels that it's not enough. She was like a drowning person grabbing onto a life-saving straw, unwilling to let go for even a moment. Di Mingju, tell me, you won't leave me. You will not leave me for any reason. Di Mingju has never seen Mayan like this. He also vaguely felt that it was strange. Mu Yen said, "I'm afraid that I'll be like my previous life." What did this sentence mean? But at this moment, he doesn't have the time to think too much about it. Endless heartache and pity have already drowned all of his reason and thinking. Chapter 37-37. Di Mingju lowers his head and presses a kiss between Mayan's brows. He makes a promise to her, one word at a time, Yen, I will never leave. You are my wife, no one can separate us. Not even the heavenly Tao, gods and Buddhas. Under Di Mingju's comfort, Mayan falls asleep again. Di Mingju places her on the bed, gently parting her messy hair and planting a kiss on her pale lips. In fact, Mu Yan's injury this time is very serious. The Hell Rebirth formation extracted a large amount of soul essence from her body. The battle with the Ning family and Yin Yuani had left her covered in wounds. On top of that, he had to watch his own mother die in front of him. With Mayan's proud and sentimental character, one can imagine how big of a blow she would receive. Di Mingju only hates himself for being incompetent. He was clearly by her side, but he couldn't protect her properly. Yen, don't be afraid. He presses his forehead against Mayan's. Gently, with an incomparably doting tone, he says, I will always be by your side. I will never let anyone hurt you again. As if sensing his aura, the young lady's tightly knitted brows slowly relaxed. His expression regained its tranquility. Di Mingju also can't help but gently curve up the corners of his lips, his eyebrows as gentle as water. Suddenly, his eyes darkened. He straightened his back and took out a jade scroll. At this time, the jade slip was flashing with a red light. "My lord, something bad has happened." Han Ye's nervous voice comes from the other side. The Nether Realm and the demon race's armies are gathering at the border. "I'm afraid there's going to be a big movement." Di Mingju frowns. Yin Wuji had lost his beloved son and wanted to take revenge on him and the Polar Realm. He had guessed it. But the devil race had actually come to wade into these muddy waters. What is Jun Shirtian thinking? Only after sleeping for 2 days did Mu Yen completely recover her spirit. Most of the Ning family's underground palace had already collapsed. After Ning Yenxin and the Hell Rebirth Array perished together, even the foundation collapsed, forming a bottomless abyss. No one knew where the original Ning family members had fled to. Perhaps it had found another dark cave to hide in, or perhaps it had fallen into the abyss after the Great Quake. Even the cave in which Ning Su's clone had been placed had sunk into the ground. The Ning family was finished. Mu Yen sits beside the abyss, staring blankly down. She thought about the pain and torture Ning Yenxin had suffered for the past 20 years. Ning Yenxin finally saw the hope of survival, but she gave it up without hesitation. He thought about Jun Shiyuan, whom Ning Yenxin had mentioned, and what she had said, "We'll never see each other again." Jun Shiyuan. What kind of person was his biological father? He was willing to travel thousands of miles to chase after his wife for Ning Yen, even at the cost of his life. But he could also abandon her at the most crucial moment. In the end, Ning Yenxin chose to die to save her, but part of the reason was because of Jun Shiyuan's betrayal 20 years ago. Mu Yen closes her eyes. Up until now, she didn't know if she should look for her biological father again. Now that she had found him, how should she face him? Just as he was thinking, someone sat down beside him. She hears Ning Yu's low voice, "Mu Yen, I'm sorry." Mu Yen restrains her thoughts, turns her head and smiles at her. "What nonsense are you talking about? Where did you let me down?" Ning Yu's lips moved, but she couldn't say anything.
Chapter 37-38. People have their own relatives. In my uncle's heart, his sister's life is more important, so I can understand why he chose to abandon me. Although she can understand, she will no longer regard Ning Zhongbai as her uncle from now on. She has no relatives in the Ning family, not a single one. Ning Yu also understands her meaning, and her heart is filled with sorrow and guilt. She smiles bitterly and says softly, "In the future, if you have any errands, even if I have to go through water and tread on fire, I will do it for you." Mu Yen shakes her head. "The Ning family is the Ning family, and you are you." From the day I met Ning Yu, I felt that this girl and I were like old friends at first sight. I recognize Ning Yu as my friend, but not my cousin. Ning Yu is startled at first, and her eyes suddenly widen. The lost light in her eyes suddenly becomes incomparably bright. Looking at Ning Yu's departing figure, Mu Yan's face shows a faint smile. She knows that even if the Ning family collapses, Ning Yu will not. Even if she feels guilty, she will not hesitate to walk on. This is an incomparably frank, open-minded, and full of vitality. The Ning family that eats people without spitting out the bones has already perished. But the new Ning family will slowly rise and prosper in Ning Yu's hands. Mu Yen is about to withdraw her gaze, and sees Ning Zhongbai standing not far away. He seems to have aged 10 years in an instant. His eyes are dark, and the wrinkles at the corners of his eyes are deeply engraved into his skin. He hides very well, and even Ning Yu does not find him. Until he meets Mu Yan's eyes, he gently trembles like a bird startled by the mere twang of a bough. Then his eyes fill with tears. From afar, he kneels down and deeply kowtows in Mu Yan's direction a few times. Then, he hobbles away. Mu Yan doesn't know whether he is kneeling to her, Ning Yenxin, or all the deceased members of the Ning family. She only vaguely knows that from now on, she and this uncle will probably never meet again. Mu Yan sighs softly and unties the blood vein bell from her waist. When Ning Zhongbai had helped her put on the blood vein bell, she had felt his genuine affection. At that time, she really regarded Ning Zhongbai as her uncle. Later on, Ning Zhongbai recklessly stood in front of her and blocked Ning Kunshan's attack for her. She had also thought that even if the Ning family was a shameless and selfish bastard, at least she still had an uncle. Ning Zhongbai was a good elder who truly doted on her. However, it was not until later that she understood. Ning Zhongbai did love her dearly, but he had planned to sacrifice her from the beginning. Mu Yan gently shakes the blood vein bell in her hand. The ringing of the bell was crisp and clear, as if it was singing gently and crisply. She gently raised her hand and threw the blood vein bell into the deep abyss. The bell was still ringing, tinkling, tinkling.
It gradually faded into the distance. It was just like everything that had happened in the Ning family's underground palace. However, at this moment, the ringing stopped abruptly. Immediately after, Mu Yan felt the ground beneath her tremble slightly. A dazzling red light blossomed in the abyss. What happened? Mu Yan abruptly stood up, took 2 steps back, and looked at the abyss vigilantly. Could it be that the Hell Rebirth Array had not been completely destroyed? The next moment, the bell rang again. The red light flashed, getting brighter and brighter, getting closer and closer. In the center of the circle of light, something was jumping. It floated in front of Mu Yan. Do you have an unfulfilled wish that you want to fulfill? The Enchantress of the Enchantress, heaven-defying baby, black-bellied dad, please collect. Chapter 37-39. A low and clear chant resounded in his mind. Mayan's pupils become slack and her body sways, as if she has fallen into a drunken state. You want to obtain supreme power, dominate the 3 realms, and move unhindered through the world. Do you want to be immortal, achieve the Tao, and ascend to the heavens? Do you want to possess an eternal and indestructible body? Do you have any regrets in your heart that you want to make up for at all costs? He. In a daze, Mu Yan hears an excited laugh. The laughter was clear and melodious, like that of a young child. One moment, it was incomparably sharp and ear-piercing, like a mad eunuch. Then, the laughter disappeared and turned into soft whispers full of temptation and temptation. Make a wish to me. Sacrifice your soul to me. As long as you use your soul as an exchange, I can grant you everything you desire. Fame, power, status, love, and even the right to control life and death. Aren't you tempted? Quickly make a wish to me. Mayan's eyes are lifeless, like a machine, she says. Can you fulfill all my wishes? Yes. Can you revive my mother, Ning Yanqin? Of course. As long as you pay the price, I can bring your mother back to life. So, quickly make a wish to me. Sacrifice your soul to me, and your mother will return to you. Within the Tian Mo Qin space, Qi Huang grabs his head, his entire body curling up into a ball from the pain. But his eyes are firmly fixed on Mayan outside, shouting hoarsely over and over again, Jun Mayan, you can't make a wish, don't be bewitched by it, stupid woman, do you hear me? Hurry up and wake up. Little Phoenix also knows that Mayan's current situation is critical. It looked at Qi Huang, who was curled up into a ball in pain, and then looked at Mu Yan, who was gradually walking towards the abyss. It was so anxious that it was going in circles. It desperately hit the space, wanting to fly out and stop Mu Yan. However, the entire space seemed to have been sealed by someone, and there was no way out. Very quickly, the Golden Crow Fire Essence also joined in the attack, but it was still useless. Little Phoenix shouted anxiously, Where's Huang Huang? Where did it go at such an important time? Huang Huang was the only one who could pass through any barrier at will. However, ever since he came out of Wushang Palace in the chaotic heaven cave abode, Huang Huang always felt that he was extremely powerful, that there was nothing he couldn't do. It was none other than Chicken Proud Heaven himself. The small space couldn't contain it at all, and it often wandered around outside. Who would have thought that it would be absent at such a crucial moment? Qi Huang clenched his fists tightly as beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. He muttered in a low voice, "Luo Yunxiao. Luo Yunxiao." Get over here. However, he was still a step too late. In the blink of an eye, Mu Yan is already in front of the abyss. Ding! 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 The ringing became more urgent and loud. The red light flashed faster and faster. Seeing that its prey was about to fall into its hands, it could no longer suppress its excitement. Come on! Come on! For the sake of your desires, become my sacrifice, become my slave. He, but in the next moment, his laughter stopped abruptly. The urgent ringing of the bell died away. Inside the space, 7 brilliants, Little Phoenix, and Golden Crow also widened their eyes in shock. They saw that the edge of the abyss was only an inch away from falling. Mu Yan stopped in her tracks, and reached out to grab the halo suspended in midair. Chapter 3740. A cold and treacherous smile emerges on her lips. You killed my mother, and you still dare to tempt me. Do you think that I, Jun Mayan, am a soft persimmon that you can knead as you please? Ding ling ling. The urgent ringing of the bell came again. The 2 balls of light in Mu Yan's grip are constantly struggling. From time to time, he would release a bewitching aura that could lure people into a dream. The sound of the bell was hypnotic, accompanied by the fragrance of the flowers. If it was anyone else, they would have long fallen into a dream and be at their mercy. But the one they dreamt of was Mayan. If you had stayed in the abyss obediently and let me think that the Hell Rebirth Array had been completely destroyed, you might have had a chance to live. Now that you've jumped out of your own volition, it's as if there's a path to heaven that you refuse to take, and there's no door to hell that you insist on barging in. Playing with illusions in front of a Shin musician, I'll let you see what a real illusion is. With a flick of his wrist, the Tian Mo Qin floats in the air. As the slender fingers played, the sound of the guqin quickly drowned out the ringing of the bell. Floating like a dream. Star Realm. As the sound of the zither grew louder and louder, the 2 balls of light in Mayan's hands gradually stopped struggling. In the end, the flickering red light completely disappeared. What appears in front of Mu Yan's eyes are 2 beads, one red and one blue. Mu Yan asked doubtfully, Qi Huang, what is this? After asking, he found that there was no response from the space for a long time. Qi Huang, what's wrong? Seeing Qi Huang curled up on the ground, Mu Yan jumped in fright and promptly entered the space to help him up. What happened? Qi Huang pushed her away and said angrily, Idiot woman, do you think it's fun to walk into the abyss? Do you know what will happen to you if you let that thing control your mind? Mu Yan staggers from the push and almost falls. But looking at Qi Huang's energetic appearance, he heaved a sigh of relief. She smiled and said, Don't worry. I'm a Shin musician, how could I easily fall for a mere illusion and hypnosis that bewitches the mind? Qi Xiaohuang, I didn't know you were so concerned about my safety. Your eyes are red because you are afraid that something will happen to me. Did you cry just now? Qi Huang was about to go mad with anger. Get lost. Who's worried about your safety? This deity just can't allow the Tian Mo Qin's master to be stupid enough to be bewitched by 2 trifling, cursed spirits. Where would this deity put his face? This sovereign is absolutely certain. Absolutely. I'm not worried about your safety, and I'm not crying. do you hear me? Mu Yan bursts into laughter. Seeing that Qi Huang was about to explode on the spot, he consoled him, all right, all right, all right. You're not worried about my safety. You're not crying. We all know that. Cho, Jinwu, don't you think so? Little Phoenix flapped his wings happily and said, Brother Qi Huang didn't cry, it's just that sand got into his eyes. Brother Qi Huang isn't worried about his beautiful sister, he just wants to shout until his throat breaks. Jun Mayan, you can't make a wish, don't be bewitched by it, stupid woman, do you hear me? Hurry up and wake up. Little Phoenix had imitated Qi Huang's tone to perfection. Mayan laughs so hard that she can't breathe. Qi Huang couldn't help but want to kill the bird. After a while, Mayan took out the 2 beads, one blue and one red. She asked in confusion, what exactly are these things? Before, you said that the rebirth in hell array contained something that even you felt wasn't right. Is it because of this? Chapter 37-41. But without waiting for him to answer, Di Mingju's anxious voice is heard from outside. Yen, how are you? Di Mingju can spy on Mayan's space. But before getting Mu Yan's permission, he had never done so. That was why he did not know of 7 Brilliance's existence. Afraid that Di Mingju would be worried, Mu Yan promptly exits the space. Master, that's the aura of the yin-yang twin hearts. Not far away, Chiwen was grabbing the hem of Luo Yunxiao's clothes. She was so excited that her whole body was trembling. This time it's true, this time it's absolutely true. Master, all that's left is the yin-yang twin hearts. Quick, let's go ask Mei Yan for it. As Chiwen spoke, she prepared to pounce forward. However, he was firmly pressed down by a slender hand. Luo Yunxiao stuffs it into the spiritual pet pouch. She glances at Di Mingju and Mu Yan in front of the abyss, then turns around and leaves. Fuck, Master, you're running again. He was clearly here to save Mei Yan, but he didn't even show his face. Forget it. Yin-yang twin hearts, that's the yin-yang twin hearts. Master, you've been searching for so many years, and now all that's left is the most important yin and yang dual heart. Don't you want to defy the heavens and change your fate? As long as you ask, Mei Yan will definitely give you the yin-yang dual heart. Master. Are you even listening to me? Luo Yunxiao suddenly stopped. Chiwen was overjoyed and said excitedly, Master, you are finally willing to go back and ask Mei Yan for the yin-yang twin. Before it could finish, it heard Luo Yunxiao shout in a low voice, Come out. Chiwen blinked her bell-like big eyes and looked forward. Under a nearby tree, Ningyut slowly made her way over with a half-eaten spirit fruit in her hand. Hi, handsome, we meet again. She waved her hand and realized that she was still holding the half of the spirit fruit in her hand. The teeth marks on it were glistening, and it looked especially bold. Ningyu blushed and quickly threw away the spirit fruit in her hand to get rid of the evidence. He pulls out a dry smile. Mu Yan is in the abyss, aren't you going to see him? Luo Yunxiao said indifferently, there's no need. After saying that, he brushed past Ningyu and left. However, he had only taken 2 steps when he heard Ningyu's slightly raised voice. You're not going to let her know what you've done for Mu Yan. In the battle with Yin Yuani, Mu Yan was seriously injured and lost consciousness. Therefore, there were many things that she did not see, but Ningyu did. This elegant and noble man was like an orchid or a jade tree. For the sake of Mu Yan, covered in cuts and bruises, for the sake of Mu Yan, he kneels without hesitation. In order to prevent Mayan and Di Mingju from estranging each other, she is willing to destroy the virtual jade reincarnation formation with her own hands and end Ning Yanxin's order. Ningyu wondered how such a man could exist in this world. He was so perfect that he could attract the hearts of all the women in the world. But in his heart, there could only be one person. He could live and die for that person. However, everything he had done had been carefully concealed by him. He was only worried that the other party would find out. Then, he watched from afar as his beloved and another man stuck together like glue. He walked away quietly. Ningyu had always been a person who dared to love and hate. If she wanted something, she would work hard to get it. If she had met such a person in the past, she would have definitely scolded him as an idiot, a fool. But at this moment, looking at Luo Yunxiao's incomparably handsome face, looking at his dark and indifferent eyes, she inexplicably felt that her heart was gently tugged by something. It was sour and painful. The correct chapter of Alluring Enchantress, Heaven-Defying Baby's Black-Bellied Father will continue to be updated on Qingdou. There are no advertisements on the site. Everyone, please collect and recommend Qingdou. Chapter 3742. Luo Yunxiao slightly frowns, coldly looking at Ningyu. This has nothing to do with you. After a pause, he lowers his voice. Thank you for taking me into the Ning family before. But what I did has nothing to do with you, and it has nothing to do with Mayan. She doesn't need to know anything. Ningyu stares at the man in front of her. She wants to say something, but she can't say a word. Half of Qi Wen's body comes out from the spiritual beast bag. Her two front paws are stuck on both sides, and she says with a speechless face, "Little beauty, do you think there's a fool more stupid than my master in this world?" He clearly loves a person to the bones, but he denies it in every possible way. Not to mention that he doesn't know how to fight for her, he even pushes her into another man's arms. He clearly did so many things for Mei Yanyan, but he doesn't let her know. Luo Yunxiao coldly looks down. Qi Wen immediately covers her mouth, laughing dryly. Okay, I'll shut up. I'll shut up, okay. Do you think it's easy for me to be a dragon who speaks the truth these days? Luo Yunxiao looks at Ningyu. Please also rot everything you see in your heart, and don't mention it to Mayan. The man's voice is low and magnetic, like a feather gently brushing against the heart. But his picturesque features are cold and indifferent, without a trace of warmth. Even his whole person seems to be drifting away from the world. Deliberately lonely, indifferent, and downplaying his own existence. Until one day, he completely disappears from the world, and no one in the world remembers his existence. Ningyu's heart suddenly surges with a strong impulse. She suddenly raises her voice. Luo Yunxiao, since Mayan doesn't like you, why don't you like someone else? The world is so big, there will always be things that are worth remembering, and there will be people that only belong to you. Luo Yunxiao stops, slightly frowning as he looks at her. Ningyu's heart thumps incessantly as she is stared at by those eyes that are like the stars in the summer night. She inwardly encourages herself over and over again. She blushes, reluctantly pulls out a smile, and raises her hand to point at herself. What do you think of me? If you don't like Mayan, then consider other women. How about prioritizing me? I can fight, warm the bed, and make money. Although I can't wash my hands and cook soup, for you, I can learn. Luo Yunxiao was stunned. From the cultivation continent to the floating island, there were thousands of women who adored him. But no one had ever confessed so straightforwardly like Ningyu. After recovering from her shock, Qi Wen let out a weird, wow, sound. Beauty, you're the first one who has the guts to confess to my master. I have high hopes for you. Ningyu's face turned even redder. His eyes were looking at Luo Yunxiao expectantly. However, Luo Yunxiao only shook her head and said calmly, "Sorry, I don't like you." The fiery passion in his heart seemed to have been doused with cold water in an instant. The light in Ningyu's eyes dimmed. They were just strangers who met by chance, and they shouldn't have fallen too deeply in love. But at this moment, she felt that her heart was swelling and aching. The corners of Ningyu's lips curled up as if she was trying to force a smile. But in the end, he still failed. I know that Mu Yan is very good, but is she really so good that no one can replace her? Since you know that all your feelings and efforts are useless, why don't you take a step back and look at others? Luo Yunxiao was stunned. Images from long ago surfaced in his mind. Chapter 37-43. In fact, he didn't fall in love with Mayan at first. He just regarded her as a talented junior, a Shin musician successor who might be involved in his fate. Since when did that stubborn and persevering woman become deeply engraved in his soul, and he could never forget her? Was it when she walked out of the blood slaughter sword formation, covered in blood, her body on the verge of collapse, but her eyes were as bright as stars? Was it when she taught him how to play the zither, her face full of helplessness, but she corrected his fingering over and over again? Was it when she deceived him into standing up for Laozi's #1 shop in the world, hiding on the sidelines to watch the fun with a sly smile on her face? Or was it when she played the zither, smiling and telling him, "Young martial uncle, no matter what secrets you have, what past you have, the Xiaoyao sect will always be your home"? Luo Yunxiao couldn't remember. If he had known that he would fall in love, he would have pulled out earlier. If he had known that he would fall in love, he would have stayed far away from Mayan. But there are so many ifs in the world. By the time he realized it, there was only this woman left in his heart and eyes. There was no room for a second person. Even if he knew that she would never belong to him. Luo Yunxiao closes his eyes and slowly says, "For me, there is only one June Mayan in the world, no one can replace her." He can restrain himself from getting close to her, not hurting her, not disturbing her happy and peaceful life. But he can't restrain his feelings that are becoming more and more unforgettable day by day. There are infatuations in life, and this hatred has nothing to do with the wind or the moon. To her, he is only the young martial uncle. To him, she is the only light and warmth in this life. He desperately approaches and protects her. Even if he is a moth flying into the fire, turning into ashes, he is still willing to endure it. "Miss Ning, thank you for your love. But I can't accept it, so you don't have to waste your time on me." After saying this, Luo Yunxiao doesn't stay any longer and turns to leave. This time, even Qi Wen doesn't speak again. He just quietly lies in the spiritual beast bag, gently rubbing his big ugly head against Luo Yunxiao, his eyes faintly brimming with tears. Ningyu stares at the man's back disappearing around the corner. After a long while, her body suddenly softens and leans against a stone pillar. Miss, I've already tidied up the things you asked me to." "Miss, why are you crying?" Ningyu touched her face, and her fingertips felt cold and wet. He looked at his maidservant, who was so shocked that her eyeballs were about to pop out. Ningyu wiped the tears off her face with her sleeve and snapped, "What are you looking at? I've never seen anyone fall out of love." The little servant girl immediately revealed a look of realization. "Miss, your confession to young Master Yunxiao was rejected. It was normal. How could a mortal woman be a match for such a peerlessly handsome man? Moreover, with your conduct, it's hard to say whether or not you can be considered a woman." Ningyu glared at her and said through gritted teeth, "Stupid girl, cough, how am I not a woman? Do you believe that I won't beat you up? Which noble families lady and miss are so cruel? And your table manners and appetite, I seriously suspect that young Master Yunxiao is afraid that he can't afford to feed you. Stupid girl, stop right there if you dare. Pft. You're angry because you've been exposed. I'm not going to stop." Ningyu chased after the little girl and played around. Chapter 37:44. Ningyut chased the little girl and played with her all the way. Neither of them used their spiritual power, and they finally collapsed on the grass panting. Ningyu's face showed a carefree smile again. Ching, thank you. Her heart, which was aching and numb just now, became much better because of Ching K's jesting. Ching K, the girl who disguised as a boy, hummed, "Miss, I still remember how you pulled my ear just now." After a pause, Ching K said in a low voice, "There are plenty of fish in the sea." "Miss, didn't you often say that? It's hard to find a three-legged toad, but there are two-legged men everywhere. Why do you have to love a flower?" Ningyuk glared at her angrily. "Why don't you find another handsome guy for me?" Ching K, well, I admit that I can't find one. But it's precisely because Master Yun Shao is like an immortal in heaven that you don't deserve him. Ningyuk clenched her fists and said resolutely, "Then I will work hard to stand on the peak of the immortal cultivation world as soon as possible so that I can be worthy of him." Ching K showed a perfunctory smile. "Okay, I have high hopes for you." "Miss, are we going to Liberty City?" Ningyu was stunned for a long time, and then she shook her head. "No, I will take my father to the northernmost part of the floating island. I heard that there is a hermit expert who is good at curse. Maybe he can remove the yuan-breaking devil's soul curse on my father." Ching K was stunned, but Miss June said that her senior fellow apprentice has a way. Ningyuk showed a wry smile. "Mu Yen may not care about it, but after my father did that, how can I accept her senior fellow apprentice's help with a clear conscience?" That wasn't an ordinary grudge. It was her father who wanted to take away Mu Yan's life with the appearance of a kind uncle. She was ecstatic that Mu Yan didn't care about her and treated her as a friend. How could she ask Mu Yan to save her father's life? Ningyu wiped her face and jumped up from the ground. "Let's go. Since everything is packed, we'd better leave as soon as possible. Otherwise, I will be unwilling and always want to hook up with handsome guys." Ching K said, "Ah. Miss, you're afraid of losing face after being rejected again and again, right? Stupid girl, do you know what it means to see through but not say it out loud? You're saying that this is the yin-yang dual heart that junior martial uncle is looking for." Hearing Di Mingju's words, Mu Yan almost jumps up in excitement. His pair of peach blossom eyes were filled with brilliance. "In the list that little martial uncle gave me previously, all the other items had specific names and descriptions. Only this yin-yang twin heart is known as yin-yang twin heart, but I don't know what it is exactly. I thought it would take at least a few years to find any clues. Who would have thought that these two pearls were actually the yin and yang twin hearts?" Hee, this was truly a case of wearing out iron shoes in fruitless searching, only to find it by chance without even looking for it. "I'll go tell young martial uncle right now, he'll definitely be happy." Everyone in the Xiaoyao school knew that Luo Yunshao needed the yin and yang dual hearts, the 12 evils of heaven, and the 36 stars to change her destiny. Mu Yan doesn't know what's wrong with junior martial uncle's life and why it needs to be changed. She only knows that in order to find these things, junior martial uncle has been wandering in the three realms for many, many years. Now that he's finally found it, will all the misfortune be far away from junior martial uncle? Di Mingju pulled her back. Chapter 37:45. Di Mingju pulls her back. The blue veins on his forehead jump. It took him a long while to restrain himself, and he says in a deep voice, "What's the hurry? When it comes to Luo Yunshao, you don't even have the patience to listen to what Ben Jun has to say." Jun Shangdaren's tone is calm, and his face is calm like an ancient well. However, the words that came out of his mouth sounded sour. Mu Yan calms down, and she can't help but laugh. But she's afraid to laugh out loud and annoy Jun Shangdaren. So she obediently sits back next to Di Mingju, and asks, "Is there any other question?" Deming-ju looks at the red and blue beads on the table, and faintly says, "Do you know what the yin and yang twin hearts is called?" "What?" Deming-ju points to the red bead, Heaven's punishment. Then he points to the blue bead, Earth's punishment. Mu Yen is startled, and it takes her a long while to react, Heaven's punishment. How can there be such a fierce name for a magic weapon? Deming-ju slightly frowns, as if he's recalling something. After a long while, he hesitantly says, "Regarding the yin and yang twin hearts, even in the Shushan continent, not many people know about it. Ben Jun only heard about it from Han Chujo. Jiu Shifu." Deming-ju nods and says, "Han Chujo once had a deep involvement with a family that was good at cursing. Because of this, she was even given the most vicious curse. To this day, she is still trapped in the Medicine King Hall, unable to leave." But Deming-ju doesn't intend to let Mu Yen know about this, so as not to increase her worries. "When you said that the Ning family's virtual jade reincarnation array is actually the Hell Rebirth Array, Ben Jun had some doubts. The Hell Rebirth Array is an array that is almost impossible to construct, because its core will be gradually eroded in the energy storm, and will be destroyed in 3 days at most. Even the top array masters in the Shushan continent can't construct it, but the Ning family of the floating island has existed for thousands of years. This matter was too inconceivable. Now that I think about it, it's because the Ning family's Hell Rebirth Array uses the yin and yang twin hearts." Mu Yen frowns. "What is the yin and yang twin hearts?" "This is a pair, curse spirit." Mu Yan's pupils slightly contract. She suddenly remembers what Qi Huang once said, "I just can't allow the master of the Tian Mo Qin to be that stupid, to be bewitched by 2 trifling, curse spirits." What was the curse spirit? Deming-ju shakes his head. No one really knows what a curse spirit is. However, as long as there was a curse spirit, all sorts of karmic evils would gather. The longer the curse spirit exists, the greater the accumulation of karma and evil will be. In the end, all living beings will be plunged into an abyss of misery and suffering. Deming-ju's pair of ice-blue eyes look at Mayan, unblinking as he says, "You said that Luo Yunxiao wanted to use the yin and yang twin hearts, the 12 evils of Dutian, and the 36 stars to defy the heavens and change his fate. Did you ask him what kind of method he used, and what kind of fate he changed? Could he really bear the consequences of changing his fate? Can your Xiaoyao school afford it?" Mu Yen stares blankly. "Qi Huang, is what Deming-ju said true?" No sound came from the space. Mayan's divine sense enters the space, only to find that Qi Huang is actually sleeping. Little Phoenix flaps his wings and says, "Pretty sister, after you left, the great devil started to sleep. Qiu and Huang couldn't wake up no matter how much I called them. At this time, little Inghua has just come back from outside. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.